Saber, what's up, dude? Actually, I should. Yeah, how you doing, man? Welcome in. Welcome into everybody. I meant to still have my. I meant to have my my freaking theme music going on. I must not have it on here. Do I not have it here? I don't. We gotta add it. Is it media source? Oh, we should probably hide Kana because she's not here yet. Fluffy, what up, Fluffy? Kana's not here yet. Don't. That wasn't real. We're both saying hi. Add source. I need. It's media source. There we go. Add existing theme music. There we go. And then we'll just lower it. Because we're talking. I was tricked. You were tricked. I'm sorry. How you guys doing, though? Thank you for being first, Saber. Appreciate you. But yeah. Also, my gifted sub ended today. Sag. Oh no. I'm doing okay today. Thank you for asking. Good. We also will have a special guest, aka my youngest, because I am on daddy duty today, and Artsy was in late at work. So if you hear some yapping, it's my youngest. Because whenever daddy's talking, he thinks it's his turn to talk too. So I got to play some of First Ascendant today. It's a good ass game. Dude, yeah, First Ascendant's a great game. Man, I love this music so much. Yeah, dude. Oh yeah, let me post this. Let me put it just in case anybody wants to like submit something, you can still do it. So let me pin this. Just in case somebody wants to do a response. But yeah, so if you feel comfy talking about it in chat, then that's totally fine. So yeah, it's gonna be a good time. But yeah, I really love this music. I think I submitted mine. Now if it got sent through properly, that's the question. Well, we're gonna go through them. If you don't, I mean, you could always resubmit if you want to, Fluffy. And then if I see something twice, then we'll then obviously like we know it went through. Hey, thank you, Fishy, for the wolf owl. Yeah, so it's exciting. Yeah, but cool. I'm just a dude, right? I have nothing in therapy, but I am gonna give my 2 cents, but that's it. It's just 2 cents. Indeed, I have been looking forward to the stream. Me too. Let me message her. Let me tell her. Hi, Fishy. We are good to go whenever you are ready. When you undeafen. Okay. All right. Cool. 2 cents of CJ is worth 2 mil of content. Boom, boom, boom. Am I poofing? I'm poofing. I'm poofing. Hana has blessed us with her appearance. Hi, Kana's chat. Hecka, look at that. Hecka's. Oh. She's a pretty big deal. Some might say the largest. No, that's me.
Oh, that's our special guest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so. Yeah. So experience, training, you know, I've been administering, facilitating, giving therapy for years. So I kind of know a few things. Yeah, that's why I'm here. Hi.
Yeah, Kana and I were messing around, and then I unmuted her. That's why you saw her mouth going. But yeah. She was talking about her credentials, but you should have heard that. I unmuted her before that.
Yeah. My credentials. And this is Jam's credentials.
I'm a guy who's a dad.
He's a guy who's a dad. Yeah.
Yeah, I let my chat know. So Kana's chat, Artsy had a late day at work, so if you hear yapping, it's my little one. Okay, he wants to put his 1 cent in. Yeah. I'm giving 2 cents. He's giving 1.
There's 3 opinions coming at you. Me, a therapist, some guy dad, and some guy dad's child. How can you go wrong?
Yeah. So. Yeah. So yeah, we had like a couple just quick ones for Kana, which was first one was, you know, what really brought Miss Fishy to therapy?
I put some lo-fi on for my chat so you can get in that vibe. Yeah. Santi, thank you for the follow. What got me into therapy? So Sabrix, thanks for the follow. So, I was just a guy fresh out of high school, going to college, And I was that kind of nerd who was like, I'm gonna be an English major. I like reading. I like writing. Let's do that. So I was like, I'm gonna be an English major, and also my family business is computer science, so let's double major in that. Because my dad was like, you can't just major in English, it's useless. Do something else. And I was like, okay, let's do computer science. And I took my first computer science class, and it was math, and I cried. And I was like, I'm not doing this. And then I took a psychology class, and my professor was super cool, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. So then I just C-worded, and here I am. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nice, nice. Math is awesome.
Yeah, for
the
other people.
the dichotomy of chat. Saber says math is awesome, and then right underneath, Fluffy, math hurts my brain.
Real, 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 real.
Oh man.
Yeah. So it was something I was kind of always interested in the workings of the mind. Like I found some stuff that I wrote in high school, and it was me thinking about college, and like psychology was one of the courses I wanted to take even before I took that course. So I was like, whoa, I wrote this. And then my silly little fresh out of high school brain was like, ooh, I can understand how people think, and then I can write it down with my English degree.
Hey,
Cool.
that's combining is key.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then actually I wasn't even interested. So there's different kinds of psychology, right? There's the general psychology, and you study clinical psychology if you want to be a therapist, and there's other branches like neuropsychology, like let me think, organizational and industrial psychology, uh eh, behavioral psychology, behavioral analysis, um and social psychology.
Nice, nice, nice.
Oh, yeah. Riri, thanks for the raid. Welcome in. I'm
Riri
talking about different
raid.
kinds of psychology. So, I was interested in social psychology, which is kind of like sociology, except just focus on individual people and their societies, right? So, sociology looks from the outside in, social psychology looks from the inside out, if you know what sociology is.
Okay.
Mm. So, I was interested in that mostly because that professor who was really cool, that was his specialty. And I was like, I'm on board. But the master's program that my school had was only in clinical. And I was like, oh, let me just go straight to a PhD program. And my professor was like, you'll look even more, what is it? You'll look more like credential wise, you'll look beefier and buffer if you have a master's under your belt. You're more, what's the word I'm looking for? You're
Marketable?
more
Um
competitive.
oh,
Competitive.
oh yeah, yeah, competitive.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're more competitive. And I was like, I'm not doing anything. Let's just get a master's degree. So I did it in clinical psychology, and that professor was like, afterward, you can still use this master's to apply to a PhD program in social psychology. So I was like, what? It's not gonna hurt. So I did clinical, and then I started doing therapy, and I was like, dang it, I like this.
Gotcha.
And dang it, I'm good at this. So yeah, now here I am, C-word into a PhD.
Right.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
The excitement. Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, Saber said, oh wow, Saber has taken sociology, cultural diversity, gen psych, and abnormal psych.
Oh, nice. I've
Yeah.
never taken sociology, but my best friend was a sociology major. So we like kind of talked shop about the differences.
Yeah.
Ayume.
See,
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
like I've obviously never done any of these things. The closest I've ever gotten is behavioral theory and game theory in like
Mm, mm,
econ,
mm, mm.
which is awesome because like it's mainly about thinking what the other person is going to do, which I've always
Yeah, yeah,
loved.
yeah,
Yeah, like I've always loved that stuff,
yeah.
and it came very easy to me. But I saw like
Hmm.
some of my my friends like struggling with it. And I was like, why are you guys struggling with this? Like this is so easy. And my favorite econ teacher, I went to talk to him, and he was like, in econ, there's people who get game theory and behavioral, and there's people that
Mm.
just don't. Like
Oh.
he was like, you and I are those, because he said he always loved game theory and stuff because of like
Mm-hmm.
how the brain works. But he was like,
Yeah.
some people it's like just like a total different language to them. So yeah, I've always loved looking into those things like behavioral, you know, linguistic programming, all that
Mm-hmm,
stuff
mm-hmm.
has just always been really cool to me. So
Yeah, no, definitely. Game theory, behavioral stuff, like that's super interesting too. And like that's kind of why the disciplines are separate. So when you learn about behavioral stuff, you don't work with patients like with clinical. I think clinical and neuro are the only ones that like work with patients, and
mhm.
like everybody else do like the research, the back end kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So they do that research and then we take that knowledge and then we do that in session with the person.
Gotcha.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Um,
Yeah.
the other kind of general ones, and then we can start jumping into these questions because all of them, I'm not even gonna say some of them, like all of them are very intriguing. I like all of them.
Yeah, you guys did a great job. I
Yeah.
looked at like the first couple of questions. I think I saw when it was just like one or two, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then we got about six, and I was like, oh my gosh, wait, they're all good. And like,
Yeah.
you guys can't see what everyone else posts, but they're like all different and
Yeah.
all really good.
Yeah,
So I was like, wow.
yeah, and like because I know some people when they were talking to me, they're like, so like they were like, it's kind of short. I'm like, I was telling people in my chat, I'm like, length, giggity,
Length.
length just doesn't mean.
Length.
It's just because like my childish brain is like half length, but like yeah, like the length of your question has nothing to do with how like
Yeah.
good it is. And there's
Yeah.
some long ones, and there's some
Mm-hmm.
like literally like one sentence that are great. So
Yeah. And I'm a yapper. So ask me anything and I'll yap, yap, yap. Riri says she sent hers
yeah,
directly to you.
those
Yeah.
are some of them that I sent to you. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, okay.
Yeah, and the list that I
Um,
gave you. Yeah.
okay, okay, okay. And you made the form is still open. Everybody, the form is still open. Um, like I said, we have a few, but you know, if you want to get those in there, get those in. I don't know how many therapy streams we're gonna do. Let's see.
Yeah,
Let's finish this one first.
yeah, I was about to say like if people like submit today and we get like a decent
Submit.
amount, like hey, I'm totally down for a second one because this stuff is
Submit.
just awesome. Yes, submit to the fishy.
Submit to us.
I'm just here. Submit to her. um so another one we can tackle while some people might be submitting is um how do you come up with therapy goals for a client?
Okay, these are the ones I wrote down.
Yeah.
Look, I have a document. Don't look there. Okay. Okay, so we talked about what brought me to therapy. So how do you come up with therapy goals for a client? The answer is as a family. So obviously, clients or patients will come in for a reason, right? Whether it's someone told them to or because they felt like they need to, there has to be some kind of reason. And usually we start with that. The first couple of sessions are like assessment and getting to know them. So we ask a bit about their background, their demographics, and then we ask them like, what brings you to therapy, or what brings you in, and they talk about it, and they usually have some kind of idea like, oh, I've been feeling anxious, I've been feeling depressed, I don't want to feel this way. And we start there and we work up, right? We're like, okay, so you want to not feel as depressed, you want to what do you call that, you want to assuage some of the depressive symptoms, you want to meet specific goals, and like that could be a big thing. Like, I want to not be depressed. Like, okay, that's not going to be our goal. Let's do feasible goals. So we break them down like into smaller goals or things that are, you know, attainable. Because if you're coming in and you're like, I want to be depression free in 2 weeks, I'm going to be like, brother, let me tell you something, it's not going to work. So the more we talk to each other, the more the therapist gets to know them, they kind of can say, okay, so sounds like these are your goals. Like, I know overarchingly you said depression was the big one. But it also sounds like this, and this is important. Do you think those would be good goals to work on as well? And sometimes they'll say yeah, or they'll say like no, not really. Those don't resonate with me. So we're like, okay, how about something else? So yeah, it's basically a huge conversation between both parties.
Okay.
And that's the important part. Therapy is supposed to be collaborative.
Yeah.
You're not there to be like, fix me. Like, if your therapist is doing more work than you, like, something's not right. And if you're
Yeah.
doing more work than your therapist, something's not right. It's not, therapists are not like surgeons, okay? Surgeons should do all the work and you shouldn't do any of the work. But therapists, there should be collaboration.
Yeah, because I mean, nothing's gonna get better if you don't put in the effort on your end. I mean, it's just like anything you want to get good at, right? Like
Hmm.
if I want to, I don't know, freaking like bench 300 and I go to a coach, I'm like, yeah, I want to bench this. They're like, all right, so what you need to do is this. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
you gotta
cool.
start with 100 or
Yeah.
50.
I just go home and I'm like, all right, I can't wait till next session and just don't do anything. Like, that's so dumb.
I'm gonna lift it.
You're gonna break yourself.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
um,
And I think that's really important. And that brings us to the next question of, is therapy always effective? And how do you gauge the effectiveness? So, one, you have to want to be there. If someone's like, if you're court ordered, or like a parent is telling you, or a partner or something, and you like have no desire to change, you're not going to change. If you're like, I'm tired of this, I'm tired of living this way, I want to be different, I want to do better, I want to show up for this person, I want to show up for myself, then that's how you get started. And I want to share a secret with you. Do you know what the goal of therapy is, GM?
um, I don't know. If I would guess, I would just say not necessarily like show you anything you didn't already know, but maybe just bring it to the forefront. I don't know.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's very close. The goal of therapy is to fire your therapist, because through therapy, you work, you understand more about yourself, you get some skills, you learn more things, and then you no longer need a therapist, right? You get the skills, you can do it on your own. So I always tell everybody, your goal is not to stick with me forever, okay? We're gonna do what we can and get you to a place where you feel like, I can do this all by myself. You have everything you have within you, you got all the tools. Um, we work through all the things and you can do it. Your training wheels are off. Therapists are your training wheels, right? You don't get on a bike and you're like, I'm always gonna have these training wheels forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Nice.
sometimes it takes time, but that's the goal. And I tell a lot of my patients that, maybe not at the beginning, but like, since I'm a student, I have to move to different like campuses or hospitals like every year. So at
Mhm.
the end of the year, sometimes they're like, "Oh no, I don't want you to go," and I was like, "It's okay, you were gonna fire me anyways. Let's just do it now."
Saber said he finds it funny he had therapy today and the stream also happened today.
Oh, da da. Ooh, it's meta.
um
Honor says, I worked through a bunch of stuff and now I'm not in therapy. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, sometimes it's shorter, whatever. Again, whatever you need to get you where you are, your therapist or maybe multiple therapists will do what they can to help you get there and then set you off on your little way.
yep. Yep. This is a side question, so it's not on your
Yeah.
list, but it's not like a difficult one. Um,
Okay.
thought process is so like because I have this sometimes with my profession, right? Which is
Hmm.
boring. It's accounting, but like how
Yay.
how do you balance knowing this therapy like this therapy knowledge with
Hmm.
like friendships like
Ah, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so I saw you had a question like, if there are friends who you give advice and they don't necessarily take that advice, right?
Yeah, yeah, that was one of my personal ones because 'cause I've struggled
Yeah.
with that because, yeah, that kinda leads into that one. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a definitely a hard one. And it's hard because your friends are people you care about. Like,
Yeah.
can obviously see from the outside looking in something's not working for them, they're in pain, they're going through something that they don't necessarily need to be going through, and you can see the way out, but they can't. And
Mhm.
it's hard because you want to be like, take my hand, I'll pull you out, I'm opening the door, come out. And they're just like, I can't see the exit, I don't know where to do, I don't know where to go. And you're like, just follow me, just come here, I have a flashlight, I have rope, I have a ladder, come here. And they're like, oh, they're looking at the wrong side of the room. They're like, I'll find my way out of here some way. And like, that's always really hard. So the hard part is most of the times they're going to have to figure it out from themselves. Even if they do it 100 times and they're learning the same thing all over again. Like, again, if they don't want to change, if that decision that they're making and it's contrary to the decisions or the advice you're giving them, they're going to keep doing that unless they want to change it. So that's hard. And again, it's hard to be someone who cares for them and see that. Sometimes, you can go up to them, and if you have that kind of relationship with them and be like, as someone who loves you or as someone who cares about you, like, it also hurts us to see you in pain, right? It also, like, I know you don't have to be living like this. You know you don't have to be living like this. And you can have that honest conversation. Because sometimes they might be like, oh, this is just my burden or my pain. It doesn't affect anybody else. But as someone who loves them, you're like, no, it affects a lot of people. It affects yourself, it affects the people you love, and it affects the people who you love loves. Just them. Yeah.
Sorry, I had a phone call. But
I was like, he
yeah.
thought what I said was
No, no,
shit.
no, 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 no. I was like they would call me right now. Um but no, I like that because so I am not shy about my questions
Mm-hmm.
because this is what sparked me wanting to do this. So like for
Mm-hmm.
example, I had a friend who
Yeah.
I thought of her like as like kind of my sister. Like we were very close,
Mm-hmm.
and she had this guy that was just like they kept breaking up, right? And
Mm-hmm.
for both of them having faults, because I was always like very open and up honest with her. I'm like, nah, you screwed up, like that's on you. But a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times, and granted, I'm only getting one side of the story, which is what I would tell her. Like, if you're telling me the truth, then yeah, you're wrong or he's wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she kept coming back and like, oh, what should I do? I'm like, you need to be single, that's what you need to do. Like
Mm-hmm.
like just
Yeah.
like you guys are not good for each other. And she'd be like, oh yeah, and then they'd get back together. And then she finally came back to me like one time. I was like, just don't, because I know you're not going to listen to me. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
let's just not keep this cycle going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's hard. There was a year in my training where, for some reason, I don't think it was planned, but all of my patients were people who were going through breakups. Like, if there was someone who was going through a breakup, they were like, oh, put him on Connor's caseload. And I was like, okay, this is my specialty, I guess. Um, so usually it kind of all starts the same, right? A lot of people come in because their friends are tired of hearing it. And they're tired of hearing their friends be like, oh, get over it, leave him, he's no good, you're too good for him. And they're like, okay, well, you're just my friend. Maybe I should talk to a therapist, even though the therapist is going to say kind of similar things in a different way. A lot of them were like, yeah, my friends are tired of hearing it, and I'm embarrassed to keep talking about it. And the good thing about therapy is you can talk about whatever. We can spend every day talking about that breakup if you want to. Um, and eventually, what you find is the more you talk about it, the more we start to poke tiny little holes into the story, right? You start to come around. Your friends, they kind of come at you with a hammer, right? They take a sledgehammer to the problem. But the therapist helps with tiny little holes. And eventually, it breaks. And it's a little bit more effective than the sledgehammer. Although we do want a sledgehammer sometimes. The therapist is definitely sitting there like, you don't deserve this. Oh my goodness. But that's not what gonna help them, right? Because that's what all their friends and loved ones are saying. You gotta do something a little bit different.
Yeah. Tortellini said something good. He said, I think it's the hardest part to talk to others about what's going on, especially with like
Mm,
close friends. like they notice, but also don't know how to address it and such. Which that works for me a lot because I'm not very emotional. And that's another one of my questions. We'll get into it later, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm prefacing it. I'm I'm good at knowing how someone is feeling, but I don't know how to re resonate with it because
Mm-hmm.
I don't have much of that. So like so that last sentence really I could vibe with that a lot cuz like there'll be times when like for even my personal life, like if Artsy's not feeling like well, like I know she's not happy or something, and I'm just like I know unfortunately I'm not the one that can help you right now. So
Mm-hmm.
like but thankfully she has friends that she can go to that are better. But yeah, like I agree. That is rough. At being the on the friend side, noticing
Yeah.
that is something that is kind of sucks to
Yeah.
have.
One really powerful like intervention, so to ooh, look at me being huge. So to say, is a lot of the times when I have individuals like this, sometimes I kind of flip it on them and be like, okay, what if this was the other way around? Like, what if you were in the relationship? You think your friend would be okay and be like, oh yeah, stay in it, go ahead? Or do you think they'd be saying something different? And like putting them in that different perspective, sometimes they're like, oh no, my friend would like want to kill him after what he did to me, or my friend would want to tell me to never call her up again. And you're just like, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting that you noticed that. And then again, those are the tiny little holes.
Yeah. Saber said in his experience of doing therapy as a patient that has done the same rodeo for almost 8 years, depending on the diagnosis, people can
Mm-hmm.
tend to deal with the help differently. For
Mm-hmm.
example, he's been through trauma therapy for most of those 8 years, but it's because almost 9 years of his life was hell. So he kind of has 9 years of baggage to unload.
Right. Yeah. So definitely different diagnoses as well take different time. So trauma therapy is done a little bit different than therapy for depression. It's done a little bit different from therapy for anxiety or social anxiety. So that also can help with the goals, right? If someone says like my goal is to get over my social anxiety, we're not really going to talk about like something completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got some questions here too. So
Yeah.
Yume was asking, what about law enforced therapy? So that's very much different, but what I think is that sometimes it can be really effective, again, if there is a willingness to change, and sometimes willingness to change can come through talking with someone else, right? Um, you can have different conversations about it. You can just be like a human being. You can be someone who's like the therapist can be someone who's there for them and like, I know this is my job and everything, but also like you're a person, I'm a person, like I'm here for you as another human being. And sometimes that can be helpful or like that can break the ice. But yeah, again, if they don't want to do it, then you really can't do anything about it. And you have to let them know. Like, you have to let the law know. Like, we tried X amount of methods, X amount of different therapists. They literally said they're not interested. There's not really much we can do.
Yeah.
Um, and Mads asks, what if everyone tells you that you should be in a relationship, but you don't really feel about it? I mean, again, it's ultimately up to you. So everyone is probably telling you you should be in a relationship because that's how they see the world. We're going to talk about this later. But
Yeah.
that's their worldview, right? You're not truly happy unless you're in a relationship and someone loves you and you love someone. That's how they see the world. So they're probably like, knowing that, I want to go love someone and be loved by someone. But
Yeah.
if your worldview is not that, then that's not going to resonate. If your worldview is, I'm fine just being by myself, then you're going to be like, yeah, that's what I want. You see someone else who's by themselves, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. I want to be by myself. They probably do too. Or sometimes you can clash and be like, I don't understand why other people are in relationships. It's so much better being alone. So it all has to do with different worldviews. It's just some people may tend to push theirs on others. Um, and that's not always good. That's where you kind of level with them and be like, okay, like I'm hearing you out and everything. That's not really what I'm interested in right now. um that's not who I am, that's not what I'm trying to do. And kind of leveling with them that way.
Yeah. Yeah, like I saw Mad's question as well, so I was like, I can't wait till she gets to that one because, like, I yeah, at the end of the day, just like you said, like it's your life. Like,
Mm-hmm.
who cares really what they said? Like, I've said the same thing to, my buddy Ace, who,
Mm-hmm.
he was like we worked together. So there was at a work function, like it was like a team building thing. So we were like bowling, all that stuff. Um, they were talking about like, oh, you need to, when are you and your girl gonna have kids and yada yada yada
Mm-hmm.
and blah blah
That's a
blah.
big one nowadays.
Yeah. Oh, not even nowadays, man. Like I was I when I was working a bit ago and Artsy and I had just gotten married, um my coworkers, like, one, she had a son, and then they were like, oh, when are you and Artsy having a kid? I'm like, when we're ready.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I told Ace. I said, hey, all jokes aside, man, I said, when you and your girl are ready, that's when you have a kid. Cause
Yeah.
I was like, man, like, if you're not ready to take care of another human being, like
Mm-hmm.
don't do
Mm-hmm.
it. Like, it's such a big thing. And so is relationships. Like, I will never forget this, but like I wanted to do um marriage counseling before we got married because I feel like,
Mm-hmm.
personally, I feel like if you do it when there's something going wrong, it's a little too late. Not really. Like, obviously
Mm-mm-mm.
you can fix it, but so we did counseling with one of my old pastors, and uh shocker, we nailed it. We killed it. Um
Yeah.
he literally was like, we have nothing to talk about. But
You fired him. Yay!
yeah, yeah, fired after one day. Let's go.
Yay!
But he said, the biggest thing he said that I will never forget is, he was like, and he's a showman, so I'm going to say exactly what he said. He was like, people who want to be happy don't get married. Say wow. And I was like, what? And he said, people who want to make their partner get married. Cause he was like, if you want to get married, then that's thinking about you and your
Yeah.
happiness. And when you
Mm-mm.
guys have a fight, they're not making you happy anymore.
Mm.
So maybe you want someone else who makes you happy. But he
Mm.
was like, vice versa. If you want to make them happy, if you just had a fight, you're like, dang, I made them unhappy. How can I fix it for them? And he was like, that means you really are looking out for the other person, and hopefully they're looking out for you. And that's a much stronger relationship.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's so, like, I will never forget that. And
Yeah.
it's been some years, but yeah, like, so I attribute that even to relationships. Like, even when I was dating Artsy, I was like, how do I make her happy? Like,
Mm-mm.
so that's kind of how, be the mindset of when you're in a relationship, and that's if you even want one. Like, if you're
Yeah.
happy by yourself, then that's good. Like, you're happy. Like, that's
Right.
kudos.
Yeah. And another thing about worldview, your worldview is shaped by your world around you. It's shaped by what you've experienced, what you've seen, what your parents have done, what friends or family have done, what you've seen in the media. If you've only ever seen someone be happy in a relationship, it makes sense that you're like, that's what makes people happy. But again, being open, both sides being open to other people's worldview and being like, this is not definitive of happiness. Happiness is not being in a relationship, right? It's something that can make you happy,
Yeah.
but it's not a requirement for happiness. And as long as you're open to that, you can avoid a lot of butting heads. And
Yeah.
they have to be open too. Everyone has to be open, okay?
Yeah. Communication, key.
Yeah. Communicate.
Yeah.
Fire your therapist and communicate.
Um so I will save your question, Mark. Like, actually, let me save it because he's sneaking in one. But
Cool.
I want us to at least tackle a couple of like the
Yeah.
submitted ones, and then we can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So do we
I
can
have
go.
them on my stream.
Okay, yeah. So
Ta-da!
you can jump in. I'm in your chat watching too, so
Okay. Yeah, so I'll read the first one. It says, my mental health has been a huge struggle and I'm severely depressed. One of the causes of this is my stress. I stress over everything to the point where I've done some things that I regret to stop the stress. I was wondering if there are any ways that you know of that can help me with this. I'd really appreciate it. Yeah, so one of the most important things is to first understand what is it that's stressing you out? Like, what specifically do you know what they are, or do you just feel overwhelmingly stressed? Like, every single thing is stressing me. Um, it's a lot easier if you can identify what is everything. Is it waking up? Is it having to get dressed and do the dishes? Is it having to go to school? Do your homework, submit it on time, do your chores, be there for your partner, be there for your children. Like, what is it? Um, when you figure that out, you can work from there, right? If you don't know, again, if you don't know, if you're like, I don't know, I'm just stressed, man, I have no idea. You can't really work from there. You're like, okay, so step one is to figure it out, right? These are my notes that I said that I wrote down yesterday, and like yesterday, these all made sense, but now I'm like, why did I write this?
I've been there.
um, and another note I wrote was, why are you thinking about the things you regret? Yeah, so another thing is, sounds like, and I don't know if this is wrong. How I interpreted this is that the stress gets so bad that in order to relieve yourself from the negative feelings of the stress, you add the negative feelings of something you regret. So you can focus on that rather than the stress. Um, and so if that's the thing, sometimes that makes sense, right? Because something you regret is a little bit easier to be like, oh, I feel bad over this, rather than I don't know what I feel bad of. I don't know what I'm stressed about. It's more manageable for you. It's your body's way of protecting yourself and being like, I can't handle the stress, but I can handle that shitty thing I said in front of my grandfather 5 years ago. I can handle putting my foot in my mouth in front of my friends. I can handle accidentally hurting someone's feelings last week, but I can't handle the stress. So like that's a self-preservation kind of thing. Um, Also, it could go even further. Like, maybe you're purposely trying to punish yourself for being stressed and not being able to keep up and do all your tasks. You're like, everybody else is living their life, everybody else is doing what they're supposed to. Why am I not doing it? Something must be wrong with me. I must punish me, and I must think about all these past things that I did, and make myself feel worse. So, those could be two things that I have in mind. Again, this could vary by a lot of different people. This can mean a lot of different things. Um, I also want to preface, this is not a full on therapy with a person, okay? Because we're talking to each other through a Google form. You
Yeah,
shouldn't do
yeah.
real therapy like that. But these are some of the things that stand out to me, at least from my therapist perspective.
Yes, from my uncultured, unlearned thought process, I agree with that. Like, and Saber said some pretty much this something similar. Like while you were reading that,
Mm,
that like sometimes it's knowing what the problem is, not that there is one. Because yeah, like
yeah.
if you don't know what's stressing you out, yeah, that's number one, right? Like this is a kind of like a running joke with Artsy and I had never really been stressed because
Mm,
I'm really good at compartmentalizing, and then
mm, mm,
that pesky unemotionalism. Like,
mm.
so she had
It's
to
a big
tell
one.
me when I was stressed once, like because I was driving into work and we were on the phone. And I was like, I'm feeling like this. I was like, God, I don't know what. I was like, I hate this. What's going on? She was like,
Mm,
Babe, I think you're stressed. I was like, is this stress? I was like, this is awful. I was like, why would anyone do this to themselves? Even though logically nobody does it to themselves.
yeah.
And I was just like, this is bad. Like I think I've been stressed probably 3 times in my life, and all of them I was like, God, this is awful. So like I could only imagine how it feels for someone who is stressed a lot. And from reading it, it sounds like, yeah, like I'm not gonna jump to conclusions, but just going off of what it says is like they've done some things that, yeah, that they regret to try and distract themselves from the stress.
Yeah.
And yeah, my only answer would be, yeah, try therapy. Just, yeah,
Hmm.
just like like really. go and see if that helps you, because
Yeah.
there's no judgment there. Um, not that there's judgment here, but you might be hiding that because you're worried about friends or family judging you. Well, that's where therapy can help you, right? So
Yeah. And a lot of the times doing things that you regret to stop the stress, like they're kind of band-aids, right? They're not fixing the problem. So if it's like doing drugs, drinking excessive alcohol, tearing up your relationships because you don't think you deserve them, they don't address the stress. Alcohol, being drunk, being high, smoking cigarettes, that doesn't make the stress go away, right? That makes you, maybe it makes you feel better for a little bit, but then the next day you wake up and you're stressed all over again and you're doing it all over again and again and again. So again, that's something that you want to get to the point of, like, what is it? What is it that's stressing me out, and what can I do about it? After you figure out what it is, what can I do about it? Don't be drunk all the time. That's
mad.
not what I'm freaking saying. No.
Mad.
No. Oh my goodness.
um
Yeah.
on the other spectrum, Saber said it helps him to use like a journal, which, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever helps you identify makes sense.
Yeah, journals are really good examples. So some types of therapy requires you to, like, or not require, recommends, like, ask you to make logs. Because sometimes in the moment you're like, I don't know why I'm stressed. I had this person who said he was anxious all the time, and I was like, what makes you anxious? He's like, I have no idea. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, what do you think of when you're anxious? He's like, I can't remember. And I was like, what do you mean? So I gave him a log. I was like, okay, we're gonna do a log. So you write down, you can do it on your phone, you can do it on a piece of paper, I can print you out a handout. Write down when it is you're feeling anxious, what was going on, what were you thinking, what were you doing, right? So this person might be like, okay, um, after work, I was feeling stressed. There were some things I needed to do and I didn't get done on time by the time I clocked out. I was feeling like a failure. I was feeling like I'm going to get in trouble. I was feeling like my boss is going to fire me. So then I went out to the bar and I drank. Like, that would be how you fill that out.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then once they have that all written down, you can go over it in session and you're like, okay, I noticed that I'm always getting stressed after work. I noticed that I'm only always getting stressed about work. I noticed that I'm always getting stressed about my boss. You see these little patterns and you're like, okay, now let's work off of that. Like, why is it always work? Why is it always your boss? Um, so yeah,
Oh,
keeping a track of that with the logs, it also expands into journals too. So when you finally get used to that, you can journal about it and be like, okay, now that I know this, let's make a longer, more descriptive narrative about this if you want to. If you're not into writing, don't do this. But if you
yeah.
are, it can be really good.
Yeah, it's so side question on this, because I've had this happen in my profession. Have you ever had it where,
Mm-hmm.
like, if you ask somebody to do that, they no longer come and do therapy? Has that ever happened?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So so another very important thing to acknowledge is that therapy is hard. Like, a lot of us will say go to therapy, maybe you need therapy. It's hard, okay? You go to someone you've never met and you bare your soul to them. You talk about your worst moments in life. You talk about the things that have hurt you the most. You're not going to want to do it all the time, right? You're not going to I had patients who were like, "Can we, like, not meet next week cuz this week was too heavy. Like, I need a break from therapy." And, like, that's fine if we're working on some dark stuff. Like, it makes sense. So sometimes there's people who are like, okay, I don't even want to go into my darkest days. Okay, I don't want to dig that up. I'm just gonna drop out. Like, nope, not gonna touch that with a 10-foot pole. I'm out of here. And that just says that they weren't ready to do that, right? They weren't ready to face all of that. Um, they could come back later when they're like, okay, now is the time. But you can't address it if you don't address it, right?
Yeah. So the reason I asked is because, to for me to kind of relate to that, um, I I've done it on the side. It used to be my main job, and then I started doing it on the side for, like, people
Mm-hmm.
who knew me. But, like, I used to be a financial planner. And so I would have, like, friends or something come to me, and they're like, oh, I want to buy a house, or I want to rent an apartment, blah blah
Mm-hmm.
blah. And so what I would do, and I still do it currently, I would, like, give them I'd sit down with them and we'd go over like what they think their budget is. So I'm like, okay, so you think you spend such and such, blah, 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 blah. We go through it and they tell me, what they make, yada, yada, yada. Usually, whenever people are telling me this stuff, there's like this plethora of money left over. So we're
Mm-hmm.
like, huh, what's going on? So then my next step is always I give them it. I'm like, okay, here's the budget. Here's what you said you do. We made this budget off of it. Now this third one, I want you for 3 months to go and track your spending
Mm.
because I was like, this is all stuff that you're thinking of. And I do 3 months because one is just too short. Two,
Mm-hmm.
you might have like a unnatural expense that just it was just a random one. So three kind of is a good
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
grouping. And I've had it so many times where like I'll check in with them. They're like, "Oh yeah, no, never mind." Because I
Mm.
tell them, I was like, "I will never judge you for what you're doing," but I said
Mm.
I need to know where you're
Yeah.
spending every single dollar, or this is not going to work.
Yeah.
And once they start tracking it, and they're like, "Yeah, no, never mind."
Right. Yeah. And I think judgment too is a big thing with therapy. So, like, I know a few people who are like, oh, I no showed on my therapist or I canceled on my therapist. Um, I don't want to call. I don't want her to feel like a certain type of way. I don't want her to be mad at me or judge me or be like, why didn't you come? Like, it's not our job to judge you, right? Like that's one of the good things about therapy. You come into this non-judgmental space. Like we understand. Again, therapy's hard, life gets hard, people get busy. Um it's also in response to Yumi commenting that he ghosted his therapist. If you feel like I ghosted my therapist, so now they hate me and I should never call them again, no. Your therapist is going to be like, okay, I'll reach out to them or I'll wait for them to reach out to me. It could be really soon. It could be a while. My supervisor said he's been working with a guy who sometimes ghosts him for like 2 years and then he'll show up and be like, Doc, can I have an appointment? And he'll be like, yeah, I'll see you next week. And then he goes away again for like a couple years.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there's not judging. My supervisor was never like, no, it's been 2 years. What the heck? You can't see me. Get out of here. He's like, we meet you where you are, right?
Yeah. Okay. I think that was good on that one.
Yeah.
We can jump to the second one. Um,
Okay.
which this one was short and to the point, right? How can
Yeah.
I tell if I'm depressed or just sad?
Yeah. So this is a really good one. I think this is one I heard a lot also in like just the online sphere. A lot of people, I don't know if you guys were online or like if we were in the same online circles at this time, but basically a lot of people were like, "Oh, don't use the word depressed because depressed is like a therapy thing or like a diagnosis thing," and other people are like, "Oh, you're just sad, you're not depressed." So it can also lead to people being like, "Oh, maybe I'm not depressed, I'm just sad, I'll get over it." But the thing is everyone can get sad and anyone can get depressed, but there is a certain kind of clinical depression, right? And that's different from those things. So let me show you this book. This is the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. This is my handbook. Basically, the DSM-5 tells you what different disorders are and the criteria for them. So to meet criteria for clinical depression, this usually is one of two of the really popular ones: MDD, which is major depressive disorder, and PDD, which is persistent depressive disorder. And they have specific criteria, so I have some of them. One of the keynotes of major depressive disorder is 5 or more of the following symptoms present in the same 2-week period and represent a change from previous functioning, and at least one of the symptoms is you're depressed or you have a loss of interest or pleasure. So what that means is there's a list of different symptoms and you have to have them, these symptoms, like 2 or 3 or 4, or sorry, 5 or 6 or 7 of them at the same time within 2 weeks. And this has to be different from how you were 3 weeks ago, right? If you were a happy-go-lucky person and all of a sudden 2 weeks later you're like this different person and you're feeling all these things, that's a marked change. That's something to be like, oh, something's going on here. So some of, I don't know why my music keeps pausing. Some of the symptoms for major depressive disorder are depressed mood most of the day, nearly every day. And that's just you feeling that, right? Or observed by someone like a friend, a family member, a partner. So most of the day, nearly every day, like 10 hours a day, the whole evening, the whole morning, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday. Um, has to be really present. The second one is loss of interest or pleasure in something you used to love. Like I used to love playing this game, and now when I play it, I'm like, this is so boring. I hate it. I don't want to do that. I don't have anything I want to do that's fun.
Well,
Um,
that's just any COD player.
oh no. The third one is significant weight loss when you're not dieting, or weight gain when you're not trying to increase your weight. Usually, when you're depressed, you don't eat or you overeat. So that's why that's an important one. So significant means a change of more than 5% of your body weight within a month, or if you have a decrease or increase, even if you're in your appetite. Um, Another one is sleep, so insomnia or hypersomnia, nearly every day. Another one is psychomotor agitation. So you kind of like restlessness, you can't be slowed down, you're always like shaking your leg or something. Um, then there's fatigue or loss of energy, feelings of worthlessness or inappropriate guilt. So again, inappropriate guilt is not regular guilt, like, oh man, I feel bad that I didn't buy my son this chocolate bar that he wanted because he already had one yesterday. It's like, oh, my family is in shambles and it's all my fault and I feel so guilty and it's because I didn't join the military when I was 10 years younger. Like disproportionate. Um, then there's difficulty concentrating or paying attention or being indecisive again nearly every day. And then the last one can be recurrent thoughts of death or suicidal ideation. So 5 or more of those at the same time. If like Monday you're feeling depressed, Tuesday you don't like things, Wednesday you're not sleeping, that's different. If every day you wake up and you're feeling depressed, you're losing weight, you're not sleeping, you don't have any energy, then you can talk about that. The second part, so after having those, the symptoms have to cause clinically significant distress or impairment in your social life, your job, or other important parts of functioning. So if that happens to you and you can still do your job, you can still live your life, you can still have your friends, then, and it doesn't distress you, that's a big thing. Then you're fine. Like, yeah, maybe it's sad, but you're still like, yeah, I'm okay. It's not needing to be diagnosed. The third one is it's not attributable to substances or other medical conditions. So if you have like a chronic illness or chronic pain, or again, if you're drinking all the time like mad, it's not, it has to be not related to that. Um, and then the next one is it's not better explained by another disorder. So that's just a therapist thingy. And the other one's also a therapist thingy. So basically fitting this category, right? And this has to be over a 2-week period at least. Persistent depressive disorder is all of that for 2 years straight, with there never being at least 2 months where you didn't feel those. If you didn't feel that for a week, but you felt that every other day in 2 years, that's persistent. So yeah,
Yeah,
you can be depressed, you can be sad, but if you feel like you check those boxes and again it's clinically distressing, it might be good to look into maybe getting a diagnosis. Something that can help is therapy. There's also medications. Depression affects parts of your brain, and some medications do some kind of medical thing that I'm not going to explain because I hate that part of psychology. But talking about neurotransmitters and yada 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 yada, I don't care about neuro stuff. The psychiatrist can do that. That's not my job. But yeah, those could be effective too. Or, other things that other people can talk about. But
Yeah, I remember the DSM from that one trial.
yeah.
Yeah. um okay, and then we can jump to, I don't really have much on that one, right? I'm a
Oh,
layman.
okay.
So
Yeah.
um So then this one is a good one that I will comment on after you. Best
Oh,
ways
I
to
wrote
help
so much about
yeah,
this one.
best ways to help people pleasers and those who hate direct confrontations.
Okay, let's just start with what I wrote. So, um, ooh, what did Kana of yesterday say? She said that people pleasing usually means you have a lot of stress and pressure on yourself, or even a fear to upset others or let others down. So you might want to be the person who others can always rely on. You might want to be the example to others of how you wish to be treated. More than likely, you don't get the same energy or responses back from other people. Um, and whether it's one of those or something else, what I usually do when I work with people is start at the beginning. Like, why? Why are you a people pleaser? What happened to make you this way? What happened to shape your worldview in a way where you feel like you always have to please people or you can't let anyone down? So that usually uncovers a lot, right? If you're like, oh yeah, I can't let anyone down. I'm the eldest in the family. I'm the man. I make the most money. Like it's all on me. Then that's how it started. If you're like, oh, one time I let someone down and they cut me out of their life, and I don't want to lose anyone again, that's a reason. So yeah, uncovering what the reason is. I don't want people to leave me alone. I don't want people to feel like they don't have any use for me. I don't want people to leave me. Um, Also a reason. I hear a lot of those. Um, so yeah, first understanding, right? And like that's something that you get to do in therapy. You know, you can do that with your friends too. But in therapy it kind of has more of a focused thing, right? And sometimes you can tell your friends and they're like, oh man, that's rough, bro. And then that's it, right?
Yeah.
Um, so some things to consider. Here are some things you can do. So one would be to set boundaries, right? So this is hard for people who hate confrontations, but setting them beforehand makes them easily accessible. So if you're like, okay, um, if you sit in the therapy room, right, and you're like, these are the things that I want to set boundaries on. Um, I don't want to have to say yes to everything, even if I have something already planned. Okay, that's a perfect boundary. Maybe nothing's planned right now, but when something comes up, you kind of have in your mind, okay, I set this boundary. This is important to me. Um, you have to understand your limits, right? If someone's like, oh, I need to borrow $10 every time they see you, and they see you 5 times a day, and you're out $50 every single day, you're like, okay, that's not sustainable. I can't be lending them $50 every day. I can't even lend them $10. Um, you know, okay, so what do I have to do? My boundary is not to give them any money or not to give them at least 50. Um, it's important to remember to take care of yourself also, which is hard if you're a people pleaser, I know. Um, One thing you can do also for that is to set your priorities and go over your values, right? If you feel like, oh, this is what I think a good friend should be, a good friend should be there for other people. Like, okay, should a good friend break their backs for other people? Should a good friend go broke for other people? Think about that. And I do that thing I said earlier. Imagine if you were in their shoes or they were in your shoes. Would you feel fair going to your friend and asking for that? Asking what they're asking of you every day? Sometimes a lot of people will say no, but I'll do it for them. And they're like, I don't understand why. Um, so, yeah, you have to think about your time and your energy and what you can and will bring to the table. Also, you want to think about who you want to give all of that energy to. It can't be everybody, okay? You cannot give all of your energy to every single person because you don't have that much to give, and then you're left with none for yourself.
Mhm.
It's very important.
Yep. Um,
Um,
I'm gonna jump in.
yeah.
Um, I have like one of the ways because I've thankfully helped two of my friends who were like this. Um,
Mm-mm.
and you could obviously comment on
Mm-hmm.
what helped them, but what I
Mm-hmm.
noticed, because what I think I'm decent at recognizing like also how people react to certain things.
Mm-hmm.
um so like one of my friends, even though it's very funny because one is a guy, one's a girl.
Mm-hmm.
The guy, I knew automatically though that I could not be as frank with him. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I was just straight up with him, I knew he would immediately shut down. So like I had to talk him through things and show him the
Mm.
inequality, cuz like he had this girl that he really liked or something, and like he was always get buying her stuff and all this stuff,
Mm.
and I'm like, dude, like what does, like, so you're doing all this for her, what does she do for you? Like he was like, oh well,
Mm.
she buys
She
me
makes me
stuff.
happy.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, she makes me happy, she buys me stuff too every now and then. I'm like, what does she
What?
buy for you outside of fast food? Because I knew that's what it was. And I'm like,
Mm.
outside of fast food, what does she buy for you? And like he was like, well, so he was thinking about it, and I was like, and what is this thing that she wants you to get her? And it was like some fancy freaking bag. I don't know. Like
Mm.
it was like 150 bucks. And my
Gucci, Louis Vuitton,
m- m-
Balenciaga,
yeah,
Hermes.
something like that. And my man was not making money, right? I was like,
No.
dude, like this is not, like, you got to look at it. Like she is using you, because I said, what
Mm.
also do you know? You know that she's dated some guy who was locked up, and I was like, you're smart enough to know as soon as he's out, she's going back to him. And so he
Mm.
was like, so he wasn't very happy, but later on he hit me back up. He was like, "Yo, thank you for like walking me through that. Like I realize it now, yada yada
Mm.
yada."
Yeah.
Now, the girl, which is hilarious, I was so straight up with her,
Mhm.
and I was like, I told her, I was like, "You're being dumb." And I said, "Not that you are dumb. You are being dumb." and and I knew
And
she,
that's something your therapist would never tell
no,
you.
exactly, exactly. But I knew she could handle that, and I knew she needed it like straight up like that. Because her other friends that were girls were always just like, "Oh yeah, blah, like blah blah blah." But like just interacting with her, I was like, "She can take
Mm.
this." And I was in my head, I was like, "She needs the shock to the system." So I
Mm.
did that. I saw how she reacted, because her boyfriend at the time was emotionally and mentally abusive, never physically.
Yeah.
And she
Jam
had
used the sledgehammer strat for his
yes, I
female
did use
friend.
the
Yes.
sledgehammer. um and I was like, you're like, I had to show her all these things that she was doing, because like she didn't even realize she was people pleasing without knowledge in her own friend group. I
Mm.
was like, do you realize you are the smartest one in your group? I was, because she was always like, "Oh yeah, so and so figured this out, and yeah, we're when we're doing the project." I was like, "I've just been sitting here for a little bit, and I've noticed." I was like, "You realize this person? We'll just call them D. Like,
Yeah.
you say D is the smartest one, but you realize that D came to you and asked you all the questions, and
Mhm.
then just put the answer together that you already had." I was like,
Mm.
you have to like, she's using you, but not in the sense like bad. She didn't. It wasn't like a bad use, but at the end of the day, she was still being used.
Yeah.
So it took, but that took years. Like even though I was very straight up, um, and people who have been on my stream, we've talked about this before. That this friend is artsy. Like this is no shock, right? Like we're very open about our how our relationship started, etc.
Eh,
um so like,
wait. I wasn't expecting that.
yeah, so like her,
Whoa.
yeah, like that's what I'm saying, people in my stream know this. um so like she her boyfriend before me was crazy mofo. So like it took, we've been together for 9 years, married for 8. It took probably 7 of those years to truly get her full, like a lot out of everybody over herself. I was like, you gotta focus on you, man. Like you're going to kill yourself focusing on everybody else.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
And like, but yeah, like it was so funny, because like it was it was actually easier for me to be nicer to my buddy than
Yeah.
being super hard on artsy, because
Mm.
one, we were just friends, and then obviously it turned into me liking her. And then like I am a
Yeah, you
nat
like her.
I'm a I'm a naturally like upfront person, but like nobody wants to see the person they like, like hurting. But I'm
Yeah.
like we gotta shock this out of you, man, because this dude's a psychopath. Like so yeah, like the sledgehammer effect was super effective with her.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think one of the things that was really important to that is like if she didn't even know, right, that she was doing all of this or she was
Yeah,
being used. Like sometimes you don't see it. So maybe the sledgehammer method is a bit more helpful then because you're like, I don't know how you don't see it. I see it. And that kind of gets them the wheels start turning and they're like, oh,
yeah,
is that
yeah,
really what's happening to me?
yeah. Because that's
Eh?
what after I did that, her friends were like, "Yeah, you kind of need that." Like they
Mm-mm-mm.
they they sent her to call me a couple times because of that. They're like, "Yeah,
Mm.
CJ might be the one you need to talk to right now." Um and it actually ties, that's why I wanted to mention it actually ties with what you were just saying about like maybe some of the reasonings, because she just typed it. Even being confident in my capabilities took me that long, eldest in the family and always having to be perfect.
Oh, yeah, eldest child syndrome. You feel like the responsibility is on you. You're like the third parent, basically.
Yeah,
um a lot of pressure. You have your families, your younger family members lives dependent on you, your older family members lives depending on you. You're like, everything's on me. And sometimes you're feeling all of that when you're 12, right, when you're
yeah,
9 and your 1-year-old sibling was just born. You have to carry all of that with you, and you start when you're 12 and it stays with you when you're 30, and you don't even realize, like, oh my gosh, if someone
yeah.
doesn't sledgehammer you, you don't realize.
Yeah, yeah, but it was, I'm like, I've always told her, I was like, you're way stronger than you think you are, and it's been nice
Mm-mm-mm.
to see that over the years finally,
Yeah.
come up. But like for example, like as a therapist, this is how like triggering this was for me. Like
Mhm.
she when she finally broke up with him or whatever and we were dating, she called me one time and was like, "Hey, is it okay if I go here with the girls?" And I was like, "What? Why are you asking me?" She was like,
Oh
"Well, I
no.
don't know if you would be okay with it." I'm like,
Oh
and I
no.
was like, I was so mad, not at her, but at him. I was like, this
Yeah.
guy did such a number on her. And I was like, are you
Mm.
going anywhere unsafe? She was like, no. I was like, are you going out like super late? Because hey, I love my state, but there are some places you do not want to go late at night. And she was
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
like, no, we should be back before. I was like, so why the heck are you asking me? I was like, just go have fun. And she was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Like I had to, like the first year of our relationship was crazy because I had to try and like break her out of these things this guy had her like stuck on.
Yeah. Yeah. And like again, so those reasons are always hard, and like that that becomes your worldview too, right? You're like, I can't mess up. I can't let anyone down. Sometimes it boils down to, if I don't say the right thing, if I don't do the right thing, if I'm not always accommodating and there 24/7, they're going to leave me. I need to be useful so they don't leave me. I need to show that I'm worth keeping around. And, you're inherently worth keeping around. Everybody is inherently worth keeping around.
Facts.
So for people to be in a position where they feel like I'm not useful to anybody unless I'm doing everything for them, like that's something you need to really see is happening and then be like, okay, this is where now that I recognize this, I need to start doing things to protect myself from that. So like I said, setting the boundaries, thinking about your values, like, is that what you want to do forever? Other people can see it's not good for you. Can you see it? And if you can see it, are you willing to sacrifice that for other people? And do these other people, would they be willing to do that for you? Probably not.
Yep. Yeah, one of the first things I've told other friends, not even just, artsy, but like other friends I know that are people pleasers. I like as dumb as it sounds, and I usually try to use comedy to like help. I'm
Hmm.
like, I always tell them you need to channel like your inner 2-year-old, and they're like, What?"
Yeah,
And I was
yeah.
like, you need to try and say no and just see how it
That's
feels.
literally number 2 on my list. Practice saying no.
Hell yeah!
You really have to
Woo!
practice it. If you've never said no in your life, of course it's gonna be hard. So you just need to start.
Guys, I'm
No,
goaded.
no, you are. And in addition to that, also you can practice stalling. If you need to work up to the no, stall. So if they're like, I need you to do this to me, no, don't say yes. Be like, let me see my calendar, or let me get back to you. Start there, okay? If you don't want to go sledgehammer into no, start there. Um, but yeah, practice that. Practice doing that. Um, and the more you practice it, the easier it'll be to say.
Yep. Yeah, I was like, man, 2-year-olds, they have no problem saying no.
Yeah, I love using that analogy. I use that for um in practicing repetitive things, and also if you want to be curious, like I tell some of the students who are younger than me, I'm like, yeah, when you're starting out with therapy, pretend you're a little kid. They're curious at everything. No matter what someone says, they're like, why? What's that? Why? Why'd you do that? Why is that happening? Like, just be curious and you'll learn so much. Sometimes they don't even think about it. They're like, nobody's ever asked me why I think like that. Nobody's
Yeah.
ever asked me why I do this. So, yeah,
Yeah.
be a little kid.
Fluffy, Fluffy just gave me a great dad joke. He said 2-year-olds are no negotiators.
I know. It's not mean to say no, Mad. It's okay to say no. That also goes into stop apologizing when you're not in the wrong. That's a hard one for people pleasers. They will apologize for anything. The sun is
Yeah,
2 degrees hotter
Tortellini, if
today,
you
they're
have to
sorry.
practice that, man, just do
The
what you
world
need
is
to, man.
ending, they're sorry. Every single thing is their fault.
Yep. Yep.
Stop!
Yep.
It's not your fault.
I used to
Um,
tell Artsy that. I'm like, why are you apologizing? She was like, I don't know. I was like, if you
I
don't
don't know. I'm
know,
sorry for apologizing.
yeah. I was like, if you don't know, don't apologize. And then never failed. She'd be like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, stop it.
Yeah. And then, the last thing to go with all of that is like just accepting that it's gonna be hard. Accepting that you can't always be everything for everybody. Accepting that, this is what a relationship is. It's two people being there for each other and bringing what they can for each other. It's not one person doing all the work. Um, and if someone leaves you because they think you're not useful to them, like, is that really a kind of person that you want in your life? Like, I'm sure if someone did that to your friend and they left them and your friend was like heartbroken that, oh my gosh, I no longer bought him food every day and now he left me, you'd be like, good, like, you don't need him. So show up for yourself and give yourself that energy too. You can't
Yep.
change everything, but you have control about yourself and like what you do and what happens to you in your relationships, right? To some degree. So set those boundaries and accept that. Yeah. Thanks for wanting the fish. Yeah.
I just took a sip, so I was like, she needs a sip
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, it feels good to get used to saying no for yourself. Yeah.
Tortellini said his bestie often tells him that about the stop saying sorry thing. She sometimes gives him the stink eye.
And be like that.
But yeah. Yeah, no.
That's
I know, like, it's easy for me to say like do this or whatever because I've never been a people pleaser. Like, so like
mm,
I know it's hard, and that's why I never try to mitigate it. But
mm,
like I know sometimes when I talk, I'm not the quote unquote nicest in a way,
mm.
like, because I don't. So you know what? We might just roll into this one. So this is
Okay.
me being like selfish, whatever. It's my stream. um, because like so I don't mean to sound mean.
Mm-hmm.
But like I don't I don't know necessarily how to speak in a way that's nice sometimes because I'm very
Mm-mm.
matter of fact. Like
Yeah.
I just kind of say what I'm thinking. which I have tried to have a filter like that's good. Like that's good to have, especially, as a professional. But like
Mm-mm.
I work on that cuz a lot of times like I have no filter. And
Mm-mm.
it's not like I'm socially inept. Like I understand certain things are not socially acceptable to
Yeah.
say. Um but one of my questions to you, and you already know, is like I'm not very emotional at all. What do you think kind of made me that way, and is there, a chance to change it or potentially, grow? Cuz there have been times when in our relationship I wish I could give Artsy like more emotion,
Mm-mm.
and but I just like I don't I don't want to fake it,
Yeah.
and I don't know if I have the range for it because I'm just not. I've never really been emotional outside of a child. Like kids are
Right.
emotional, but like yeah.
Yeah. No, that's definitely one that you see a lot. It's very common in men, right? It's very common in people who have a lot of responsibilities. So like if you have a specific job, it's common for people in the military. Um, it's common to people who grew up with structure. It's also common for people who grew up in an environment where they weren't allowed to feel feelings. Like this is the way the world is, and they had to accept it. Again, that shaped your worldview, right? If your worldview is that say it as it is, this is how it should be, um, then that's how you navigate through the world. And it's a little difficult, especially if you see others who have a different worldview. If there's like, we need to talk about everything now. I gotta say, what are you thinking? Tell me what's going on. Tell me why you said that. Why did you use these words? What made you come at me at this way or say it in this way or bring this up today? Um, there's a lot of people like that, and there's a lot of people who are like, it just popped into my mind, or like, I don't know, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't say it like that. Um, so there's kind of two. First off is like the two approaches to that, and then we can go back into the how. So the two approaches are like, one is to practice empathy. A lot of people think you're either empathetic or not. That's not true. You can practice empathy. If your worldview is that you feel like empathy wasn't as present to you or you don't really know how to do it, then practice how to do it. Um, some things you can do is listen to others, right? Listen to what they're saying, try to really hear them out. Be curious about what they're saying. Like, if you don't understand, okay, I just don't understand why this is making you sad or why the way I said it upset you or made you feel a certain way. Um, Ask, learn a little bit more about that. And then think about your worldview and your potential biases, and also think about theirs. So your biases are like, my bias would be if we are adults, we should have our shit together. So if you're still confused, I don't know why you're doing that. You're an adult. Like, you should be with the program. So if you have that bias and you are talking to someone else who's an adult who is like, my life is in pieces, I don't know what I'm doing, you have to take a step back and be like, okay, I'm going into this relationship or this conversation with this bias that adults should have their shit together. Their bias is people don't need to have their shit together. We're just human beings. We all make mistakes. And we don't have to show up a certain way. How do you bridge that? How do you connect that? And like, how do you communicate with that? So it goes back to communicating and understanding. Sometimes you can do that. And then the other thing is to accept that you'll never be able to truly feel what other people feel, but do your best to show up for them anyways. So, like some people, I've seen this a lot where they're like, I just don't understand why he feels that way. And sometimes you have to be like, do you have to understand? Like, they feel that way. Is that not just enough? Um, so, yeah, those are like two of the quick things that I can think or that I thought of yesterday. Not that I can think of now. I wrote these down. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, because like like to give you an like a real world example.
Mm-mm-mm.
So one time that I felt quote unquote as bad as I could about it,
Mm-hmm.
um like when we were having our first kiddo, when Artsy was pregnant, like I knew, like I'm really good at reading things, so like I knew she was kind of feeling a little bit like down that I wasn't like excited with her. And that's always
Mhm.
something I say like as a side note to people who have told me they wish like, and it's usually whenever they're sad, they'll tell me like, "Man, I wish I was
Mm.
like you." And I'm like, "I promise you you don't wish that."
Yeah.
Because like I don't, even though I laugh a lot and all that stuff, like I can laugh at anything. Like that's not really an emotion. Um
Mhm.
I don't get excited for things. Like I rarely get excited, and vice versa, I don't really get sad.
Mhm.
Um, but I can feel certain things. Like certain songs will make me like feel a certain type of way, etc. But like
Mhm.
I saw it on her face. I'm like, man, I wish I could give her this excitement. And
Yeah.
then I was sitting in the room because we had built his crib and done all this stuff, and I was just sitting in it. And she was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, I'm just I just wish he was here." And she like started crying and she was like, "That's your version of being excited."
Yeah.
And like, and I was like, maybe that like it made me think. I was like, am I excited? Like I don't feel
Mhm.
excited, or like I was trying to map it to what I usually see
Yeah,
people do
what
when
you
they're
see other
excited.
people do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, I mean, I don't feel any different. I just yeah, I just wish he was here. Cause like
Right.
I
Yeah.
was thinking about like holding him and stuff, and I was like, yeah,
Mhm.
that'll be fun. So, yeah, like
Yeah.
that's a real world.
Yeah, no, that's a great example because, like, I agree exactly with what you said. Like, that's how you experience excitement. And, like, I also agree with you saying, that's not what excitement looks like to me. I've seen other people jump up and down and cry and be like shaken with excitement. And I was just kind of sitting there. So, again, that goes with the world view. And I really appreciate that both of you were able to see, like, oh, okay, that's like a communication. It's not that you're not excited, it's just that you're showing in a different way, and she was able to see that excitement on you, and I guess maybe you were able to understand it a little bit more. There are some conditions, like health conditions, or also mental health conditions, where emotions are muted sometimes. There's also people whose worldviews, again, just have them show up different ways or have them feel different ways. um, and it sometimes it doesn't make sense because you're like, no, I see what other people are doing is excited, but that's not what I think. Sometimes these worldviews um, can develop when you're a child, when you're really young. That's why kids scare me. When people say kids are like sponges, they are not kidding. Like oh, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to say the wrong thing because you're gonna remember it in therapy, and you're gonna tell your therapist 20 years later, and it's gonna be my fault. Um, so yeah, some of it can stem from that. Like some people hold on to things. They're like, oh, I don't cry because when I was 5, I cried and my dad got really mad at me and he yelled at me and said all these things. So after that, I never cried again. Um, and like that shaped that person's worldview.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I take a lot after my dad, because
Mm,
my dad is not very emotional at all, but he's a very, like, nice, like,
yeah.
man in a way. Like, he was very strict, don't get me wrong, but,
Hmm.
like, very strict, but, like, he did it I always knew he did it out of, like, a care, but I do
Mm,
remember, like, when I was younger, because this is how I knew he cared, because like, I never saw him when I was a kid, like, he was always working. Like, there was literally
mm-hmm,
times where, like, I would go to bed, I didn't see him, I'd wake up and I didn't see him because like, he had already left, but I knew in his like, because he was very open, like, he grew up super poor, so he was
mm-hmm.
like, in his mind, he needed to make money to, like, provide for his family, but like this dude was making way too much money. Like it was disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mom was like, that's not my love language, which shout out to love languages. That was actually one of the first books my dad had me read. It's very funny. He had me
Wow.
he had me read seven seven qualities of highly effective teens, and then that was another one. Um and then like, but I knew he cared because he then left that job and went into teaching so that he could spend
Oh,
more time with like me and my mom. So like he showed it in different ways, and I
yeah.
like that's why it kind of resonates with me
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
doing it differently. And Jack in my chat says everyone experiences emotions differently, so comparing yourself to others is very common in his opinion,
Yeah. No,
which that makes
definitely.
sense.
And who's to say that everybody who's doing like the jumping up and down crying thing didn't all see it from the same person and they're like, oh, this is what it means to be excited. I have to do it too. Right. Um, yeah, so it's different. Other people experience different things. You just have to kind of take an extra step to be like, okay, what does this look like for me? And sometimes it can lead people to be like upset at themselves because they quote unquote don't feel things like other people do. But if you get to that point where you kind of understand it and like the people who are around you and who love you also like understand and be like, oh, yeah, we get it. Like that is way more manageable for you and like not so blamey and be like, something's wrong with me. Nothing's wrong. You get it.
Yeah. Um Tortellini says, not gonna lie, I don't understand love languages at all. Um the quick and dirty way to describe it is like think of what makes you happy or at least feel loved. So
Yeah.
for example, me, my top love language, because we all have a mix of them. My
Mm-hmm.
top one is like quality time, and then
Mm-hmm.
right underneath is probably physical touch because I like cuddling. Cuddling is awesome. Um, but like gift giving is a love language, and that's like my lowest one. I
Mm-hmm.
do not like gifts. And I know that's from my childhood because like I didn't really get like birthday gifts or Christmas gifts or anything like that. But like my parents, if I needed something or wanted something, and like I had been doing well in school or whatever, my parents just bought me it whenever. So like presents weren't a thing for me, so I think that's why I don't like gifts. That's the only way I can think of it. But vice versa, Artsy loves giving gifts. So I remember the first time I refused one because I was like, nah, I'm not really into that. I saw that it hurt her feelings.
Oh.
So I was like, okay, so I'll start accepting them because that's not nice to like shun somebody else's. And then after a while, like cuz that's her mom's love language as well.
Mm-hmm.
After a while, her mom realized, "Oh, okay, so CJ doesn't like just random crap. He'll take useful ones." So like
Yeah.
she'll get me like a shirt. Like she was getting me dad gifts before I was a dad, and it was great cuz like she knew I liked like short sleeve button downs, etc. And like
Mm-hmm.
she would get me those. She knows that I love Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so she got me like some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle socks, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna wear these all the time." So like,
Yeah.
yeah, acts of service is now a strong one of yours. Yeah, I could see that,
Mm,
babe. Um,
yeah. My top is also quality time. And like either acts of service or gift giving. And I feel like it's the opposite. Like it's the same as you, Jam. Like my parents definitely gave presents and gifts. But younger me internalized that as that's the only way they show they care. So if someone gives you a thing, they care for you.
I
Which
had
is really
a
bad. And I've talked about that in therapy, so don't worry about me. But yeah, that's how different things can manifest. Um, and so even between the love languages, they look different. So like some people feel like quality time is like hiking or going to a movie or eating dinner. Like sometimes I'm okay with like being in the same vicinity. Like you sit on the couch, I'll sit on the desk. We're doing different things, but we're in the same room. That's quality
facts.
time to me.
Hell yeah. Like there'll be sometimes I'm just sitting there and like Artsy will be like on the other side of the couch. I'm totally fine
Hmm.
with it.
Yeah.
We're vibing.
Yeah. That's quality time.
um oh, Tortellini. Okay, my bad. Tortellini said his question was like, how do you figure that out when you already struggle with identifying what you feel at the moment? I mean that is kind of hard. Like
Yeah.
that just takes a lot of thought on of at my
Hmm.
uneducated guess is like you really just have to go through your life and be like what made me happy at that
Yeah.
time because like you should be able to, I think, right, like I don't want it to sound judgy, like you should be able to, I think you should be able to like figure out what made you happy a couple times in your life and then
Hmm.
maybe attribute that to a love language.
Yeah. or like just think of all your happiest times or all of the happiest memories you can remember, and like try and piece out, okay, what about that time or that memory did I like, or did bring me joy? Was it, spending time with a person? Was it because they gave me something? Was it because they did something for me? um Whatever the other ones are. Yeah. So it some people do things like memory scan or emotion scan, or like they intentionally take the time to look into those past things, and look into finding those, especially if it's hard at the moment. Some people struggle with like memory, and some people are like, I can't even pick anything. So you can just go, some people do like a whole, there's a existential therapy that has you like go through your whole life year by year. If that's something that is beneficial for someone, I can be like, okay, what do you remember from the first grade? Anything fun happen? Anything memorable? You can also think about the things you don't like, and then your love language is the opposite.
True,
um
true.
so if
Sometimes
you
it is easier to identify that. Yeah.
if you don't like people touching you, you do not like physical touch as your love language. And
Um,
sometimes love languages can change, because I used to hate physical touch. I'm like, don't freaking touch me, okay? We can be in the same room. Don't touch me. But now I'm like, yeah, I'll hug the homies or whatever.
so I don't know if Riri's here, but that is a perfect example. So like, I told her, because like one of her questions when I was in her chat before, she was like, "How did I figure out that
Mm-hmm.
like I wanted to marry Artsy?" Because we
Mm-hmm.
got married after basically a year of dating. And she was like that's fast. Like, how did you know? And I told her it was a very weird but dumb way. So talking about the physical touch thing, I love the hell out of my parents, right? But like, if someone sat too close to me, that side of my body would get hot. Like,
Mm-hmm.
as weird as that sounds, like literally the left
Mm-hmm.
side of my body would get hot, and I would hate it
Mm-hmm.
because I hate being hot.
Yeah.
It's a struggle. Anyway.
That is a struggle.
but and even all like different girls that I dated, like that still would be a thing, but like I would kind of overwrite it with I do want to be next to this person, so like I would kind of like deal with it. But even then, like I'd have to like get up or whatever and like blah blah blah. When
Yeah.
we were just friends, we weren't even dating. And like I remember she came over because we were working on something. I can't remember what it was. And she was sitting next to me. And like I was just like yada 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 like vibing. And I was like, wait, what the hell? I I don't feel hot. And I was like, okay, well maybe this is just a weird thing, you know? Maybe I'm
Yeah.
just my body's just not reacting right. And then over a couple dates like later, like when we started hanging out a lot more, like she would like cuddle up next to me, or like I'd like lay on my lap or something, and I would never feel hot. And I was like, this is so weird. Like
Aw.
this is this feels normal. And like I tested it with like my dad. And like I'd sit next to my dad, like not even right next to him, just sit next to him, and I'd fart. No, I'd start feeling hot, and I'm like, no, like I still do it. Like what the hell? And I was like, huh. It's not it doesn't do it with her. Cool.
Wow. I love that. That's great.
What did Fluffy says he's similar to me. He kind of gets the same thing. He has sensory processing disorder, so if anyone touches me or someone gets too close, my entire body gets this uncomfortable
Mm-mm.
pain feeling. Well, that sounds awful.
Yeah.
Thankfully mine was only just temperature.
Yeah.
And it's
And I
yeah.
know other people have the temperature thing too, and it's like a somatic symptom for like anxiety. Like if some people don't feel comfortable around other people, that could happen. Um, just trying to think of things that I know that is similar. Yeah.
That's interesting.
So maybe if you've never felt anxious outwardly, that's how you experience anxiousness.
Huh. Maybe yeah, maybe.
Yeah. And artsy doesn't make you anxious.
Yeah.
Ah.
Look at that.
Look at that.
um uh This so do you can choose which next one you want to tackle because I know some of them are super long and then some of them
Yeah,
are shorter, but like
yeah,
again, all of them are impactful. So I don't know which one you want to hit.
yeah. I'll go to this one.
Hey, welcome to the
Um,
Wolf Pack, Nutmeg.
any experiences with people on the spectrum, and if so, what, in your guys' opinion, is a common trait among them? And this person also added, Kana, I'm expecting a more thorough explanation since you're wanting to be a therapist. My first response is, first of all, I am not wanting to be a therapist. I am a therapist. My second response, my second response is
You get
that
it right,
there,
damn it.
yeah, heck. I love languages, knowing my profession. Anyway. Uh, and the second thing is just like we'll bring the book back. Just like major depressive disorder and persistent depressive disorder, um, autism spectrum disorder also has clinical criteria in the DSM. Here's the book. It matches Jam really well. Wow.
God,
You
so
trying to be a
real.
therapist? Don't let me fight you, Yume. I don't like touch, but my fist is gonna like touching your face. Okay, so for autism spectrum disorder in the DSM-5, one of the first criteria is persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction across multiple contexts, manifested by the following, either right now or historically. So deficits in social emotional reciprocity, and that can range from abnormal social approach and failure of normal back and forth conversation to reduced sharing of interests, emotions, or affect to failure to initiate or respond to social interactions. Um, Deficits in nonverbal communication behaviors used for social interactions, ranging from poorly integrated verbal and nonverbal communication, kind of saying the wrong words all the time, not really knowing what things mean. Um, Kind of think of it like when mom texts you, um, grandpa died, kissy face, because she thinks the kissy face is like love and endearment. And you're like, that's not what that means, mom. Um, yeah, so like getting those signals mixed up. And then deficits in developing, maintaining, and understanding relationships, ranging for difficulties adjusting behavior to suit different contexts. So not realizing like I need to act a little bit different when I'm in the library versus when I'm at an amusement park. To difficulties sharing in imaginative play or making friends, to the absence of interest in peers, so not even caring about people, like don't even bother. So again, that's deficits in communication socially and social interactions. And then the second one is restricted or repetitive patterns of behavior, interests, or activities as manifested by two of the following. Again, right now or before. This is the one that kind of people are like, oh, I was a train kid, I was a Harry Potter kid, but more specific. So stereotyped or repetitive motor movements, use of objects or speech. So think of verbal tics. That's like saying a word like you have to say it like ka-chow, just random conversations. I'm like ka-chow. Use of objects, so that can be tapping on things, that could be fidget spinners, that could be always pretending you're playing the drums when you're at a restaurant and you get your knife and your fork. Um, it could be repetitive motor movements, like you always have to snap your fingers, clap your hands, do something all the time. Um, Randomly saying ka-chow sounds pretty cute. No, it doesn't. Um, the next one is the insistence on sameness and not really liking things that are outside of routine. So always needing to have a routine. If there's no routine, it kind of sends the person into like a panic mode. They get distressed at like small changes. Someone they love changes their hair. Someone rearranges um, their bedroom. Their teachers change. The year changes. And that causes distress. Next one is highly restricted, fixated interests that are abnormal in intensity or focus. So, again, there's one thing to be a dino kid, there's another thing to wear the inflatable T Rex costume every single day for 2 years.
One of those is a
Hopefully,
legend.
hopefully you own more than one because they're not machine washable. And the last one is hyper or hypo-reactivity to sensory input or unusual interest in sensory aspects of the environment. So some kind of textures, like they make you feel icky, like you don't like velvet, or you can't touch like what is that called?
Styrofoam.
Styrofoam. Yeah, that's a big one. Um, Sometimes you can't eat certain foods. There's some people who don't like it when their foods have different texture, like their food has to be all soft or it has to be all crunchy. There can't be a crunchy and a soft component because that's too weird. Um, yeah. So, and then in addition to those, they have to again cause clinically significant impairment, and they have to have been present in early developmental period, but they may not have been like full blown until later. Yeah. So those are the common things. A lot of people say that or can recognize some of the more common things, like again the interest thing, like Dino Kid. I see a lot of kids with specific interests. I knew a child who really liked Thomas the Train, loved it. Everything had to be Thomas the Train. He was not interested unless there was a Thomas the Train, and like that's how he would focus on his work. Like they made accommodations so that his worksheets would have Thomas on it. Be like color in Thomas, or like Thomas said this to his friends. So like making it work and also keeping their interest.
That's
Texture thing is a
awesome.
big thing. Sound's a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's cool to hear about the kid, the Thomas the Train kid.
Yeah. My mom was a special education teacher, so that was her student. And like when it was Christmas time, she'd like, we need to find a Thomas thing to give him for Christmas. And then like, okay, so it was our job to scour the mall for any Thomas thingies.
Yo, shout out to the people that deal with special special needs like teaching. I That takes a special kind of person.
Mm-mm-mm.
I could never do that because but like I would again uh, I would feel like so sad for them, and I know that's not what they need. Like
Mm-mm-mm. Yeah.
you shouldn't feel that way.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, awesome, awesome answer. I'm not gonna touch that one at all because they wanted a therapist answer, so they got the therapist answer.
Yeah. Those are the common traits. If you're not familiar, um, autism spectrum disorder has become a spectrum in the most recent DSM. There used to be like a different kind of like autism. There used to be something called Asperger's, but he's a shitty person, so we don't use his name anymore. And also, we have found that autism really is a spectrum. It goes like there's different kind of things. Like some people may not feel or experience every single thing or experience in the same way as other people do. So yeah, if you're interested about that, there are other resources. There are so many resources, in fact, that I do not specialize in ASD. I was like, Mom, that's you. I'll do the other therapy stuff because my mom didn't deal with mental health, like depression and anxiety. She just did schooling. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah.
That's a good totally he said if you are the person who wears the inflatable dino costume, then anxiety is scared of you.
Yeah.
um All right, so the next one is
Ooh.
I know who this is. And they said I would
Oh
know who it
no.
is. They To be fair, they were like, you'll know exactly who it is by this question. All right, so I got my first exhibition at a pop-up gallery at an art festival coming up, and I got really bad anxiety of people. Like really, really bad. I already got quite a few things to do when I'm having my anxiety attacks, but this is really new and I'm not sure about how to deal with all the people over the course of the 3 days. Do you have any advice on what I could do in preparation for such an event?
Yeah. So the first thing we would say is to have tools ready, and it looks like you already have them, so that's great. One thing you can do is just make sure that you're familiar with them, you know how to do them, you're able to access them in this event. Like some people for anxiety, they like to swim. If you cannot swim at this event, then maybe that's not one you should be looking for. Maybe you do one that you can do anywhere, like breathing exercises, or grounding techniques or anything like that. You might be familiar with those if you already have some of them. So have your tools ready, add to your toolbox, make applicable. Um, Next, if you have not already done that, looking into or understanding a lot of the times it deals with trauma. So, if you're working through that, like that could help with what is it specifically about people or crowds or strangers that is upsetting. And when you get that answer, that can also further the treatment and further the understanding of what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Social anxiety treatment is a whole different thing from generalized anxiety treatment. And again, it has a lot to do with trauma and PTSD as well. And those are very separate. I'm learning actually more this year focusing on trauma and PTSD and traumatic injuries. So maybe next year's episode, I will be even more versed in this. With that kind of treatment, a lot of it is exposure. I'm not sure what kind of exposure that you are comfortable to do on your own. If you have a therapist, they can walk you through some kind of exposure. There's different therapies that deal with exposure, like prolonged exposure or even just some exposure exercises. And then, in the short term, one thing that I have seen work, and you might not believe it, but it is, again, going back to acceptance or faking it till you make it. Like a lot of people were like, I just had to do it. I had to grin and bear it. And I was okay. Like I needed to go to this event. I needed to go to this gallery. I couldn't get around to it. So I just pretended like it wasn't driving me crazy. Even though it was, I used my tools. I ran away to the bathroom as much as I can. I reset myself. I went back out. And I did the dang thing. I had a friend with me. I forgot to add that. Having someone with you, bringing a friend or a family member or a loved one, a safe person,
Yeah.
that would be really good to have too.
Yeah, no. I was gonna say that like the resetting might be something that is really good, like really big for you, which if at least for the art like gallery stuff I've been to before, which granted I've only been to two. So, but thankfully both times I went, it kind of had something similar where they kind of paused it for a certain amount of time,
Yeah.
like it opened at such and such time again. So, if this one is like that at all, that might be a great time to settle yourself, but you probably might need a break in between that. Who
Mm-mm.
knows, but yeah, just try and make yourself as comfortable as you can be. So, which I think what I'm about to say is like grounding techniques. I don't really know them, but like if there's something that makes you feel comfortable, like I don't know, like if I don't know, like for example, if it's like a smoker or something, like you could have
Mm.
like your lighter in your pocket or something, or if you have a fidget spinner and like that's your thing, right? Like
Mm-mm-mm.
you
Yeah.
you could have like a fidget spinner like in your hands. Like me, I have noticed like if I'm getting bored, um, like I'll like roll my pen over my fingers, and that will like re- not necessarily relax me, but like keep me engaged because then I'll just like go in
Mm-mm.
la la land.
Yeah.
Because I have ADHD.
I
um,
know.
but like stuff like that, whatever kind of reminds you of a calmer time for you, if you can fit it there, or like I don't know, like maybe if art's your thing, maybe if people aren't there, you can sketch something, and that could be your release. I don't know, like just different things like
Yeah.
that could potentially help.
Yeah, no, those are definitely grounding techniques. So you talked about a few, like a distraction. So basically, the term grounding is to signify that you are lost in your thoughts and you are in that la la land and you need something to bring you back to the ground, bring you back to earth, center you. So you got it. You hit the sledgehammer on the head. Okay. Um, yeah. So you also gave examples of like tactical ones. So sometimes, just feeling in your body that you can feel a different texture, like the pen, or a fidget spinner or something like that. A squishy. I love squishies. Having those in hand, literally, could enter you and be like, okay, I'm not in this big scary place. I'm in this physical space, and I can feel this pen and I can feel this fidget spinner, and that helps ground people.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice,
and
nice.
I see that they also said that maybe they can bring another person and that their bestie might not be there physically. If there's a moment, maybe if you ask if they're okay, if they could call you or text you or anything like that too. If you have friends on Discord, you can have Discord open if you're feeling overwhelmed. Be like, hey, is anyone able to chat? Or you don't even have to tell them. Be like, can someone send me pictures of their cats or whatever you feel like you enjoy or would make you feel better. Then you can do that.
True. Very, very true.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, and looks like yeah, they'll have their sketchbook. So that's good. That's good. Good. Good.
Yeah, nice. That's also a good grounding technique too. It really engages your attention, your concentration. You can draw things that you see in the art gallery to also help. Like, oh, I see a person with a funny looking hat. Let me draw the hat. Or a really cool backpack. Let me draw this backpack.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. You want to move on to another one?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, this is the last one that we have recorded. I don't know if anyone put any more in. Blah,
Yes,
blah,
we
blah, blah.
have at
Oh,
least three more from what I've seen.
what? Okay, wow. Yesterday Kana did not have any input on it, so that's gonna be great. Okay, so this one is I'm still not over my ex and it's been a while, 2+ years. Is that normal? I don't want them back, but I think about them sometimes and I still feel bad about some of the things they did and said. So, one, definitely normal. So, relationships are a big part of people's lives, right? And I use this age analogy. Um, Especially if you're younger, right? If you're like 18 and you're in a 2-year relationship, that's about over 10 years or 10% of your life, your whole life. 10% of your whole life you're in this relationship. So that's crazy to conceptualize. No wonder it's going to affect you. No wonder it's still going to be on your mind. Um, but when you become 25, that percentage goes down and it'll keep going down the more you get older. So you'll have more years and the 2-year relationship will grow smaller. If you've heard the words like it'll get better over time, like definitely that is 100% I agree with. So the answer to heartbreak is math. Shut up, you may. No. Um Basically it hurt. Ouch. I hurt myself. It hurts until it doesn't hurt. Nice. um think about what part hurts, right? What is the part that you keep thinking about or that keep hurting you? What are the things that they said or they did, and what parts of the relationship are you holding on to? Because some people are like, yeah, I don't want them back, but they said some mean things about me, like they cheated on me, so that makes me feel like everybody else is going to cheat on me. Those are things you have to break down and think about, like, why are you holding on to this? um Something I learned recently is like also conceptualizing, especially if it is a younger relationship. Some people feel like in that transition between teenager and adult, like maybe there's some things that their teenage relationships like left with them or they hold on to. Like one that makes a lot of sense because these are your formative years, right? Again, this is 10% of your whole life in this relationship dealing with this person. It was huge to you. Now that you're an adult, you think I should be over it. It doesn't go away automatically. But also, all of the bad things that that person did to you, that was probably someone else who was young and didn't know what they were doing too. So, most likely, please let's not go into anything different from that. But most likely, you think about, okay, am I still gonna let this 18-year-old hurt 25-year-old me? Am I still gonna let these memories of this person, this young boy or girl, get in the way of me finding a man or a woman to love? Um, Sometimes those perspectives are really helpful. Yeah. And then we
Yeah.
have the love guru, Crazy Jam.
Whoa, hey, whoa. um
He's no stranger to love.
I mean, all those would sound like the exact same thing I'd say to a friend. So like
Yeah.
I can resonate with those because like yeah, it's basically it was a point of your life, so one that already has meaning, right? Obviously 2 years, especially nowadays, that's very long. Like a lot of relationships sometimes don't even go over like
Yeah.
3 months, let
Yeah, yeah,
alone
yeah.
2 years. So I mean, you shared a lot of time. I think the hardest part, but probably the best part, would be trying to change that into learning experience. So you don't want it to be necessarily like something that you're guarded about, like i.e. like they cheated on me, so now I'm automatically just going to be guarded, because then that turns into self-sabotage. What you do is, maybe you just like, okay, this is what happened, I learned from that, and
Mm-mm.
now I won't let something of that nature happen to me again, in the sense of like, let's say, like
Mm.
one of the things you said is like some of the things they said or did. So it's not that like you go in with your walls up, which in my personal opinion is not bad to be. Like you don't want to
Mm.
be
Yeah.
upfront and open. Well, no, you want to be upfront. You don't want to be just open automatically with people. They
Mm.
need to earn that side of you. But like if your ex said stuff that like was demeaning to you, that's something you look at in your next person. So like in your first like couple dates,
Yeah.
if they say something you're like, "Ooh, that's kind of a trigger for me,"
Yeah.
then yeah, just make a note and
Mm-mm.
then just go on. And again, it comes back a lot to communication, because if you do see like maybe a future with that person and like you've gone on a couple different dates or whatever, then yeah, you bring it up, be like, hey, just so you know, like this kind of rubs me in the wrong way, blah blah blah. If they're open to that, cool, awesome. Like that's good to see. If they automatically kind of get defensive, then maybe that's not something you want to pursue. But that's going on the other side, right? That's moving on to another relationship. Let's we I don't even know if you're ready for that. So
Mm.
so like rewinding, just try and see if you can change it to a learning thing to learn from,
Mm.
and kind of arrowing back to what Matt said about m- being in a relationship even if you don't want it.
Yeah.
Maybe like you don't want one for right now. Like if your ex is still like, to give you an example from my life, right? I had dated a girl, and it actually was, yeah, around like 2 years. And the only reason we broke up was because of distance, but I still really liked her. And I jumped into a relationship with another chick like down here. And then I was like, you know what? That's not fair to her. I'm like, if I'm still thinking about this person, that's not fair to you that I'm with you.
Mm.
So, um, the one when I was in here, when I was in Florida, she was not happy about it. But I was like, I mean, that's just not fair. Like, I'm gonna like, and this is one of those things where I'm not emotional, so I could have probably said it better. But like,
Yeah.
she was like, "Well, if it had to be between me or her right now, who would you pick?" And I was like, immediately, I said the other person. I was like, her.
Ah.
I was like, her all
Yeah.
day. And that's why I was like,
No,
that's why
you
it.
didn't say all day.
And
You said her all day.
no, I actually
Okay,
didn't. I
okay,
didn't say
okay,
I
okay.
didn't say the all day. I did not
Whew.
say the all day. That was
Oh
a
no.
right now, CJ.
Okay,
No, what I
okay,
told
okay.
her, the exact words I told her was, in all honesty, her. That's what I
Okay,
told
that's way more tame.
her. Because I
I
was
would
just
never recover if someone was like her all day, baby.
no.
I'd be like,
No.
gotta go.
Like I said, I'm not socially inept. I'm just but yeah, like she I knew in her mind she thought I was gonna pick her. And I was just like,
Mm,
I mean, in all honesty, no, her. Like, because I'm
yeah.
still thinking about her. And we were deep. Like my
Mm-mm.
dad, there's been only two girls that I've ever dated that my dad liked, and the one in Georgia, that was the one that I broke up with. It was her.
Yeah.
He would like text me. He was like, "Hey, how's so and so doing?" And like a message,
Mm-mm.
and like they would talk to each other through me. And like my dad is an artist and she was an artist, so like they would sketch stuff to
Mm,
each other, and he'd be like, "Hey, send her this," and like
yeah.
so that's why I was like, we were deep, like, and this is
Right.
just like a flingish kind of thing. So, and I
Yeah.
was like, I don't do flings, so I was like, yeah, no, this
Mm.
isn't fair. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
hard too when like family and other lives get involved and intertwine. Like, of course, it's gonna be more impactful.
yeah, yeah. So like, yeah, maybe you're not ready for a relationship until like 4 years from now. Who knows? Like
Yeah.
that's you have to be ready for it.
Right. Yeah. And I think in thinking about whether you're ready to, like some of the things about what part hurts, like there could be parts that hurt that you don't even realize. So one thing that I like to do, remember when I said I was a specialist at breakups? Um, a lot of the time, the people who are broken up with or cheated on, the things that they are hurt about have nothing to do with the other person. The things they are hurt about have to do with themselves.
Yeah,
So yes, the person cheated on them, but they're not mad at that person. They're mad at themselves for being someone to get cheated on. They're not worth someone being faithful. That's what they think of themselves. So that's the part you really have to address. And sometimes they don't even realize that. Like, okay, what does it mean when you feel like, okay, um, this person cheated on me or they left me? Then eventually the person will say, no one's ever gonna love me. I'm not worth being loved. And like that's the stuff that hurts. And like
yeah,
that's the stuff you have to deal with.
yep, yeah.
Yeah.
Very true. I mean, I self sabotaged me and Artsy's relationship at first because
Mm,
it was so weird for me having someone else do stuff for me.
mm, mm,
I was like, I'm always the one doing this. So I did not think I was worth having her. So
mm.
I almost sabotaged it, and then we worked through that, and hell, we've been
Yeah.
together for 8 years.
Look at you now.
Yeah.
All day, baby.
All day. Hell yeah.
No. Um yeah, and another thing again, saying that it all goes back to you. Um, you know, when a relationship fails, you also are grieving the effort you put in, the time you put in, the work you put in. Like I did all of that work to be a loyal partner. I brought them into my life. Like you're grieving that too. You're grieving I put all this effort in. Why couldn't they do that to me? Why am I not getting this return? Like treat people how you should be treated. I treated them the best that I could. Why was I treated like this? You know. So, yeah.
Very true. Very, very true.
Mm-mm.
Um oh, let's see. Let me see. I think now that we're in new territory, I did have a couple others from Disky that someone
Okay.
that they were sent to me directly.
Hit me.
So let me scroll. Bum, 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 bum. Okay. Um oh, this was a really good one. Um
Yeah.
what what
Hit me.
resources could someone utilize if they can't afford therapy or if it's
Mm-mm-mm.
not readily available for them?
Mm-mm-mm. Yeah. So one of the better things to come out of the COVID-19 pandemic is that a lot of health accessibility has been improved. Also working accessibility, but like there's a lot of telehealth services that have been accredited. They are safe, they are confidential. A lot of my work since 2020 has been online. Like I think I've met someone in person like not a lot. Let me be honest. Um, so accessibility, like, as long as they are in your country or your state where they're licensed, like you're able to work with them. There are some sites that have fixed prices for like specific demographics, like if you're students or if you make below X amount of money yearly or if you have a medical condition. You can also check with your insurance if you go to school. A lot of schools have online things. A lot of communities have free community services too. Just do your research into what's available and what you have access to. One thing, if you're in the US, I don't know if you're in the US, but there's this what is it called? Open Path, I believe. It's um this place that gives a fixed price of sessions. So if you want to be seen with a student intern like me, but maybe they get paid, I don't know. It's only $30 a session, whereas right now
The slight
therapy sessions
shade.
therapy sessions can be like upwards of $100 to $200 without therapy. So Open Path deal like looks at what you can provide. In some places, I was meeting with someone through Open Path, and like they just lost their job and they couldn't do $30 anymore. And like my clinic was able to work with them and be like, what can you do? Can you do 15? Let's do 15. Like, I still want you to get the services. Like, there are people who still are able to help you and want to help you. Probably not the money grabbing government ones or the private practices that charge everyone $500. But there are things out there. I definitely recommend to look for them. Look up things like free mental health services in your city, your community, local schools, and don't be afraid to also get therapy from students because you might get me. Just kidding. Yeah,
Dude,
you
now
might get someone as cool as me. I
oh
mean,
no, that's not possible.
yeah.
Now, do
I
you
have a friend.
have you ever run into it? Well, obviously you have because we've talked. But like, have you ever run into it, or do you run into it a lot, like from friends asking you for
Oh yeah,
advice?
100%. Um, as soon as someone learns that I'm studying psychology, they spill their soul to me. There was a girl who I had an English class with, um, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm also a psych major," and she told me about her traumatic breakup, and I was like, "Girly pop, this is our first conversation."
Damn.
Um, so there's people like that. I just went to visit my family over the summer, and one of my really distant great aunts was like, "What are you studying back there? Wherever you are, in whatever place you are." And I was like, psychology." And then she told me about something when she was in her 30s and she was depressed, and I was like, "Auntie, whoever, please." Um, so yeah, there's some people like that. There's other people who are like our friends, and they're like, "Could you recommend to somebody?" Like, I moved to where I live now 3 years ago, and there's people who are like, "Can you recommend someone in our hometown?" And I'm like, "I don't even know who's in our hometown." Um, I cannot recommend you anything. I can tell you what I've heard about them, maybe, but I don't really know who's there right now. Um, yeah, so it's really common. People just think everything. um you also people think we can read their minds if we understand psychology. They're like, "Oh, you're going to read me, you're going to psychoanalyze me," and I'm like, "Brother, you're not paying me, so I'm not." Don't think I'm gonna do that. So yeah, we cannot read your mind. And please don't tell me about your trauma when you're 30 if this is the first time I'm talking to you at a family outing where everybody's intoxicated. Thank you.
All right, this is one of the newer submissions. It says, "How do I cope with feeling like I'm not good enough? No matter what my achievements are, I always feel like I'm not doing enough. I've been feeling like this for as long as I can remember, and I go through some of my days with the thought of not working or studying enough to make an impact in the world, big enough to be remembered after my death. I don't know how and
Mm,
when specifically the idea of being remembered through my work started, but I know it was a thing from when I was a kid and lasted to today, even though I started to give it less fuel lately. But I feel like
mm,
that's the but I feel like that's because I can't sustain anymore my own expectations and it just paralyzes me sometimes. Since this
mm.
is longer, I'm gonna copy it and send it to you in Disky. That way you can read it through for if you have multiple answers.
Okay. Yeah. Um, thanks. I also have it pulled up too, but I appreciate that. Um, so again, this is something I don't think we talked about. We kind of talked about worldview, but this is inherently an existential problem. And not in the existential crisis kind of way, but exactly in the existential crisis kind of way. there is a type of therapy called existential therapy that I actually really enjoy a lot. And it basically looks at your understanding of the world and your place in it and what you want to achieve, and what you want to give. Existentialism is oh my god, let me Google it. I just Googled Google. Existentialism. Existentialism is the philosophical belief we are responsible for creating purpose or meaning in our own lives. So, and that doesn't have to be like, that doesn't negate faith or culture or traditional beliefs or anything. It just says that if you believe that faith or culture or traditional beliefs are what give you purpose, then you are in charge of assigning that purpose. Existential crisis, but not in the existential. It's not in the TikTok, Tumblr, oh my gosh, I'm having an existential crisis kind of way. It's a really hard look into like, what is the purpose of my life and what am I even doing and how do I go on and what do I want to
Totally, you're
leave
so
for the world.
stupid. Negate
And that's
past
huge.
awesome.
Okay, that takes time. That takes specific ways to deal with. And it really is a personal kind of thing to work on, because you really again, you have to look at your values, you have to look at what's important to you. Like, yeah, it's important to want to be remembered. How is that possible for you? What can you accomplish? What is feasible, right? Like, those can be the small goals. What's important to have. Some people deal with their existential dread in different ways. Like, some people feel like they have accomplished things by being a parent and passing down their genes to someone else. That's how they are not elongating. That's how they are preserving their prosperity, right? Their lineage. And that's how they leave an impact. There are some cultures that like still revere their dead and like they idolize them. Not like idolize like Oshinoko kind of idolize, but like, you know, they put up pictures and they give offerings and do deference to them. So those cultures, like, they do a good job of keeping that alive. And it's not uncommon to feel like that, right? Nobody wants to be forgotten. Like, that's sad to think about. It's hard. People don't want to be like, what was the purpose of this? No one's ever going to know what I did or what I done. Like, it kind of makes your current existence a little bit more bleak if you feel like that. So yeah, look into all of those. Existential therapy takes a little bit longer. That's the one that goes into like your whole life and everything if you don't even know where to start. I really enjoy that therapy. And yeah, it's also goes back to that other question about stress and pressure, right? Like, what is it that's making you feel not good enough? Who are you not good enough for? What about you is not good enough? It's not everything. If it is everything, like, say what it is specifically.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you get stuck on the, oh, everything, everyone, I'm not good enough for anything or everyone. Like, where'd you learn that? Existential therapy looks at that. Who told you that? Who was the first person to ever make you feel like you weren't good enough? Why do you feel like you weren't good enough? When was the first time? Do you remember? Do you remember the last time? Are all the times the same? Is it all the same person? Yeah.
True.
That's not something your therapist is going to ask you on the first day. When was the first time you felt like you weren't good enough, right? That takes time. That takes skill. But that is eventually going into the curiosity, one of the questions that leads up to it.
Yeah. To nerdify this on a business side, I attribute this to kind of like when I'm telling people or helping people get out of debt. Like, usually they look at the whole thing and they're like just like paralyzed by it. And we break it down by like, let's say card by card or something. So like if you have like a card that has like $1,000 of debt, you have another one that has like, I don't know, like 5 and another like 15. People generally want to look at like the bigger one. But also people are like, we're at our core very simple. right? So
Mm-mm.
like we love having wins. So what
Yes.
I usually tell people is let's focus on the small one first. And then I was like, once you crush that first one, now you're happy. You're like you're jazzed. You're like,
Yeah.
yes, I've accomplished one of these. You are automatically gonna take that fervor, like that excitement that you have,
Ooh,
and
fervor.
like and like shut up, I said I'm nerdifying
Take
it.
that fervor.
And like you're gonna take that and move it to the second one, right? And then now you're gonna feel like even more gassed to do that. Like you're like, yeah, I want to
Gas me
finish
up with that
this.
fervor.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And like I would just take that in the same thing for this, right? You coping, and not feeling enough. Everything Kana said is right? Like who told you that, etc. But like also look into yourself instead of thinking about all these things that you don't feel like you're doing. Let's just set one little goal. Like, you know what? I want to do this. And then once you knock that out, you're like, awesome. I feel great about that. Let's move on to something a little bit bigger. And just keep that same energy. And it could be something super simple. Like, I don't like literally as simple as I want to get into work like at earlier than normal for this whole
Hmm.
week. And then like if you feel like you did it, cool. If you only did it like 2 days, you're like, okay, cool. Let's aim for 3 next week. Like
Yeah.
it's just something simple to get you in the
Mm-hmm.
mindset of winning. Because at the end
Yeah.
of the day, we always want to win, right?
Yeah.
Even if we're
And
not
two is more
competitive.
than last week.
Exactly.
Last week was 0.
Exactly.
Yeah. So winning definitely is a good way to see it. Reward is like the scientific term if you're like thinking about biology and evolution and stuff. Like all living creatures want reward, whether that's, to win at things, to get their needs met, to get their wishes and their dreams and their aspirations met. Those are all rewards. So if we can still meet those rewards by breaking them down and making them smaller and still celebrating those, then we can get through and slowly build up to the bigger ones.
Yeah. True, true, true. Um n-
Yeah.
Now we did get couple others that I am nowhere near qualified for that are definitely um better ones, but I know you said like you had like a little blanket statement.
Yeah. So, I think these questions are very important.
Yes.
I also recognize that I will not be doing them justice on this platform in this modality. I definitely recommend if you have not, please do try and look into mental health services.
Yes.
Anyone else who has been affected by um, trauma or assault or physical violence, please do that. I want you to get what you need, and I'm encouraging you to look in those proper places to get it. And I am wishing you well. And I'm not saying your questions were good, they were great.
No,
But
they're
again, I would
yeah.
be doing you a disservice to discuss them in this format.
Yeah. Very yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like they're so important that yeah, that like yeah, this is just not
Hmm.
the correct forum for it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
at the
it
end
was
goal
really.
is oh, sorry. Go
Mhm.
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say it was really brave of you to
Very
submit
true.
them. Like
Yeah.
that's a great first step, especially if you have not considered going and getting professional individual personal services and therapy and such. I would recommend you keep up that stride and go and look for that because I think it would be really helpful, especially if you do have more questions like this and you can get a more personalized and immediate answer. You can clarify, you can take it at your own pace, you can give all of the relevant um, context and more about you as also to hear things from your own mouth and to give you your own authority and your own power is in itself an intervention.
Yeah. Yeah, just mirroring that like the fact that you were able to type it and especially
Mm,
to us, that's yeah,
mm,
that's a great first step. Um but yeah, I even though I don't know who you are, I will keep y'all in my thoughts, cuz
Yeah,
yeah.
I just love you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's rough, and that just take that second step, and hopefully you can find a therapist that will really be able to help you on that one-on-one. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
um
And if you haven't submitted a question or if there was something similar that might have happened to you, I also encourage that for you. Um, you know, again, these are understanding things about yourself. This is an opportunity to learn more. This is recognizing that you don't deserve to be living in sadness and pain for most or all of your life. You deserve to be happy and feel relief and feel okay and not scared in your body and scared around other people. And I want that from you, and I hope you want that from me as well. Okay, jammed in a phone call. This is the second time he goes mute when I'm saying something important, and I'm like, he just thought what I said was bull. But yeah, he's taking a phone call. Yeah. Can I be scared around me? You should be. I'm really intimidating and scary, and all of my patients are nervy around me, and everybody who knows me knows I'm terrifying. So yeah, be afraid. Be very afraid. I'm kidding. If you don't know me, if you're from Jam Stream and you're like, what is this little Looney Tune saying? I'm kidding. But yeah, you're not scared. Yeah, you mean you're not scared enough. I want all good things for this fish, and the fish wants good things for you. Fish got platinum month. Yeah, that was with your help. My God.
yeah, I apologize. Yeah, that was my mom. And my
Ah,
mom, if I didn't
Mama
answer,
Jam.
yeah, if I didn't answer, she'd be like, "You never answer when I call." Blah blah
Oh,
blah.
we need a whole therapy session on that.
No, she always does that because I give her crap for like never answering. I'm like, "Why do you have a
Mm.
phone? You never answer it." And then so anytime I don't answer her, she's like, "Why do you have a phone?"
Oh no, that's such a mom thing to do.
Yeah. But yeah, no. Like unless anybody has like a question currently, I think this was
Yeah,
awesome. I
yeah.
I actually did not expect it to go over 2 hours, so that's
Wow, look
awesome.
at us, little
Yeah.
yappers.
Um and I usually don't post VODs, but yeah, I'm going to post this one um because I feel like
Yeah.
the different topics could help different people.
Mm, mm,
Um
mm,
but yeah, this is something that, one, like always, like I've been telling you, thank you for doing this with me, because this is something that I think is very important. Especially because I didn't grow. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Like in the
mm.
islands, like this is just not a. Well, it might be now, but when I was growing up, this was not a thing.
Yeah,
Um, People did not think therapy in this way at all.
right.
um so yeah, that's why I love doing stuff like this, because it's important. um
Yeah, and I agree. I came from a similar cultural background where mental health talk was stigmatized, medication was stigmatized, you had to suck it up. My own mom was a special education teacher, and she was like, "Girl, you don't have ADHD, you're fine." And I was like, "Okay, mom, you know." And
yeah.
here I am, like, guess what? So yeah, like it's hard, especially to like come from that background, but I think it's good to like normalize therapy and talking about it, and using this space to like answer some questions and maybe encourage others to look into it more. um be some kind of advocacy. um if any of the questions got people thinking, or they're like, maybe it's not so bad, maybe I'll text my therapist back. Maybe I'll set up an appointment, I'll do some research in what's available to me. Then yeah, that's great.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, if we did anything at all, at least it's hope to get the thought process going if you
Yeah.
need it, right? Like, even if you don't, I like the thought process,
Yeah.
because it might help you resonate with someone else, right? And as as I've noticed as I've been getting older, like we do have so many more options of how getting different ways to connect. But
Yeah.
one of the hardest thing that I've seen for people younger than me is actually connecting with people like face to face.
Mm.
So yeah, if that's something, if this helped you at all, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I do plan on doing another one of these, not anytime soon, because this does take prep work,
Yeah.
and you know, yeah, it's something that I think is more impactful if we do it longer, and also Fishy gets more knowledge under her belt. We get more
Yeah.
information. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but yes, thank you, Kana. You are awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks, Jam.
I don't know if you're gonna continue. If you are, um,
Nah, I'm gonna
no,
raid out.
okay, yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
rate out as well.
Okay.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so thank you very much, love.
Thank you. Bye, Jam. Bye. 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 Bye.
Bye bye. Right. Boom. And she poops away. Um, awesome. Dude, guys, that was awesome. Thank you very to those who submitted, you know who you are. I don't really know who you are, so that works. But thank you guys very much. This is very fun. Even though, and not like the yay yay ha ha fun, because some of the topics were a little bit on the serious side, but this was fun to do, right? Um I as I've gotten older and I see like how different things affect people, especially younger kids and stuff, this has been more so like important to me. Um so yeah, I thank you guys for being uh quote unquote vulnerable enough to submit. But we're gonna end the night with some fun, right? So I know pretty much all of you guys know Mad, and if you don't know Mad, this is a perfect time to meet him. He's one of the homies, and he's playing the Yugi of O's. So we'll drop in and say hi to him, and yeah, yeah, Matt is live. Yeah, that's who we're going to. So please show him some love. If you are part of the Cyber Wolves, here is your message. If you are not part of the Cyber Wolves, here is your message. um Again, thank you guys so much for being here and supporting. Love y'all. Hope you guys have a good weekend. We will be back tomorrow with probably some Yu-Gi-Oh and some Zenless Zone, because I am really loving that game. But yeah.
Grab a stick and twist it!
And on that note, we're gonna raid out. Love y'all guys. Peace. Oh wait, I thought this was insta raid. All right, you get 6 more seconds of me. And raid.